Welcome to the Mantic Universe podcast. I am very clearly not Chris because it's Mrs. Chris's birthday. So we don't have Chris today. So I've agreed to be a substitute. Chris, this is Steve. And I am here with my good friend Clem. Hello, Clem.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Steve.
Hi. And my good friend Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hey, Steve. There you go. Well, dare we say a new and improved Chris. So
The one significantly less bearded Chris. Significantly less in control of this podcast as well. And we are joined by special guest Mike. Hi, Mike.
What's up, buddies? How are we?
All the way here from the Unplugged Radio podcast. Is that still a podcast, Mike?
That is still a thing, though you wouldn't know it. So we had just recorded episode 97. John Vanaz was posting it up to our website where we host all our stuff. And the website became corrupted, and we lost all of our old content.
Oh my
God! All of it. So
That's
we
horrific.
spent the last couple months trying to recapture everything and reset up a new site and get ourselves standing back up again. And that's why, listen, I do feel good because multiple people were like, "Hey, I tried to upload the latest one and I could get it," which means people are actually listening. But ever since that second day, we haven't heard anything from anybody being like, "Hey, we really want you to come back." But we are getting everything together for a triumphant comeback, hopefully with episode 97 is actually going to be posted, and then we'll go on from there, cruising to number 100. It only took us, I think, 7 or 8, 9, 15 years to get to 100.
It's amazing, though.
Yeah, it's pretty good, though, right?
That's very like Mantic Universe podcast. Despite the lack of demand, we keep on making episodes.
That's right. We will force you to listen, right? We know what's good for you, and it's us. Get this in your ears.
We're carrying hanging out on the radio. That's all good. Well, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, you are here as listeners to Countercharge will know because you have produced a book. I'm sure you wrote that incredibly recently. That book. Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this later on in the podcast. We have a running order. Chris will be, I'm sure, on his wife's birthday listening, and he'll sneakily have a listen somewhere and he'll be yelling at us to carry on. So, welcome to the Mantic Universe podcast. This is our monthly episode, and we're going to be talking about the usual, see above table. Oh, sorry. We're going to be talking about, we have Mantic news, of course. We have Warpath, Firefight, and Dead Zone news. We have Panathor, Kings of War news. Then we have Panalore. What do we have for Panalore today?
you were just
question,
talking.
huh?
You were just talking to him.
Oh, you are right. Oh, yeah. Okay.
What book could we be talking about today? Good question.
I'll see myself out. Thanks.
Like Mike Rossi's biggest fan. This is getting embarrassing. Then we have our listener questions. Topic of the month, which is kind of the Panalore all in one, I think, because it's on a price. Although we have got here TBC, wargaming is a hobby, ? Which sounds exciting.
Let's see if we make it to that point, right? Because we said today we're pressed for time. And Steve, you have to remember. You have to remember to say we're pressed for time regularly.
That is Chris's. We're pressed for time, dear listener. So we are pressed for time. We have Mike for a precious couple of minutes. So we're going to crack on. So. Interesting, Mike, would you like, for those, obviously, you're very famous in my house. I have my posters of you and photographs up on the wall. I was practicing my hair and showdown, just in your name and honor. But would you like to introduce yourself to the MUP Universe audience, who you are, where you come from, a little bit of your wargaming backstory, and how it came that you ended up writing a book? Tell us.
There's a lot of questions in that question. So let's start with the bio stuff, right? I'm Mike Rossi. I have been gaming since I just turned 50 a couple days ago, and I've been gaming since I was 12. Started playing Warhammer in freshman year of college, playing D&D in high school, and when Warhammer exploded, imploded, died, and everybody jumped to Kings of War, I went with them. And I've been playing ever since. I think the game is fantastic. It's everything that I wanted in a war game, without any of the crap that GW had put into their game. So it's pretty good. I've been doing Kings of War for now about a decade, right? And I'm the Northeast United States Masters rep Been to every Masters, sometimes representing the Northeast, sometimes working for other regions. I'm a pretty good Dwarf player. I'm not great, but I play usually. My main one is Dwarves. Trying to think what else is like important or interesting to people. I have a real tough time talking about myself, which sounds weird. I'm the third mic on the Unplugged radio podcast, which is pretty good. We do a lot of Kings of War talk, but we also do a lot of talk about reading and role playing and other assorted nerdery. So if you're down with a broader perspective, come on over and listen to us. Our book recommendations are pretty great, if I don't say so myself. And books. Okay, so I also write for a Dash 28, which, if your listeners don't know, is a Kings of War fan site where there's a lot of good people writing really excellent articles, and I also write there too. And for a while, I was doing a serialized short story about a mercenary company that operated on the Argovikian plain called the Bannermen. That story, I was really starting to hum on that story, and then there was a call for author submissions by Brandon Rossbond over at Winged Hussar. I said, you know what? COVID was just starting. I said, I really got to find something to do with my life. So I packaged that stuff up and I sent it to him and I said, Brandon, do you think it's possible that I could maybe perhaps write a novel, right? Could I get in on this? And he looked at it and said, yeah, this writing's pretty good. I sent him a pitch. He was like, don't do that pitch. That pitch is awful. Do something else. Do something that you know. And I said, well, I know dwarves. And so he said, okay, well, let me set something up. And then a week later, we had a meeting with him, myself, and Matt Gilbert. And this was right when Halpi's Rift, the Halpi's Rift supplement was coming out, right? And so he's like, Matt was like, the dwarves, the free dwarves are going to go back to Halpi. And what I want you to do is can we do something with that? I said, I'll talk about a dwarf clan that's going back to retake their ancestral hold. He gave me a spot that was it's called Lingir Kadu on the map. And he said, okay, try to do that. And this is the time frame under which it has to happen because we have other things going on that he didn't tell me about, which, at the time was just fine. And so here's your opportunity. I said, all right, let's get to it. I had 15 months to write the novel. I got it done a week before it was due. And this was back in 2021, the fall of 2021. Ooh. And then, but in the meantime, I get a message a couple months. So I start writing and I'm doing the writing thing. And then a couple months later, I get a message from Ben Stoddard, who I'd reached out to because I was like, hey man, I don't know what I'm doing. Can I get a hand here? He said, yeah, shoot me your manuscript and I'll take a look at it while you're writing. I'll give you some input. I said, that's great. Thanks. So it turns out that Ben was actually really good to work with, not just because he was very generous with his time, right? But also it turns out that I get a message from Brandon Rossbond. He goes, hey, by the way, Ben has been chosen to write a dwarf trilogy. Isn't that great? And I was like, yeah, it's great for him. But what am I going to do? Right. So at that point, I'm like, oh my God. So I reached out to him. I said, dude, if you're writing dwarf stuff and I'm writing dwarf stuff, your dwarf stuff has to match my dwarf stuff and my dwarf stuff has to match you. Right. So we ended up having it took a couple weeks for us, but we sat down and we were like, all right, how does Mantic Dwarf Society work? We plumbed through all of the lore that we could find. We went through all the first edition, second edition. I had an advanced copy that was sent to me of Halpi's Rift, so we dig through that, and we were sharing notes back and forth, and we built essentially Dwarven society from the ground up. Because at Panathor, the lore the way it is, they give you some bones. There's a lot of good stuff there, but you're really, in order to write a novel about it, you really got to flesh it out, right? So, what are the differences between free dwarves and imperial dwarves besides the units that you can take on the table, right? Well, culturally, what makes them different? So we ended up working together on a white paper, for lack of a better term. It was like 6 or 7 pages, and we submitted that to Mantic. And we said, hey guys, this is how we think dwarves are. What do you think? And they came back and said, yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. Don't do that. This sounds good. They gave their input, and that became the basis of us working together on our respective projects, right? And then even though my novel was done, I got done writing my novel first, but I was told, hey, listen, two things happened. One, COVID messed up all the publishing. So you couldn't get books printed, right? So everything just slipped for like 18 months to 2 years. So if you're sitting around waiting for the latest I don't know, John Grisham book, you get to wait, right? So that actually made a big difference in the publishing schedule. And the second thing that made a difference is because Ben was writing a trilogy, and that trilogy has to be done by a certain year. They were like, listen, we can't have your book come out first. His first book has to come out first. It's just how it is. We have these other books that have to come out. This is the release order. We'll slot you in here. So even though my book came out, was done first, and even though my book happens a couple months before the beginning of Ben's book, in order to meet the publishing schedule, Ben's first novel was released before mine. So when you read mine, it's a prelude, but not really, because none of the characters in my book appear in his book, in his series of books, right? I was really aware of...
because they all die?
Anything. What's that?
Because they all die, like in...
obviously,
Star Wars
they all
did
die.
Something like this, right? They did a prelude after the fact, and so none of them come back is because everyone dies. Spoiler alert. Sorry, guys.
Dude, if my book was half as cool as Rogue One, I mean, Rogue One is in my opinion, the best Star Wars film, followed by Empire, and both of them end on a down note, right? But just those, anyway, neither here nor there. No, it's thank you, Clem. I completely lost my train of thought. You are the worst.
That was the plan. Thank you. That was exactly my intention.
That is his way.
Capital W, the worst. So, does anyone have any other questions for me before I get
I have a question. So, which dwarfs are the best between Abyssal Dwarfs and Imperial and Free Dwarfs? Which ones are the best ones?
Free Dwarfs culturally are the best. On the table, Imperial Dwarfs are the best.
Ooh. Do you know what? I played against Free Dwarves, and I would challenge that, because I do agree Imperial Dwarves are amazing, but Free Dwarves are ridiculous right now. Shield Breaker Hordes are stupid. They did not need Crushing 2. And also the formation is stupid. They did not need all the rules. They just went through the rulebook and went, which of these rules? Oh no, I've just dropped them all in. Oh well, I guess they'll stay there. And they've got everything.
Checks out.
Right?
Checks out. It's a different at the risk of, it's a different type of board control, right? Because you don't have any long range shooting besides like the Rangers, which are horrendously overpriced. So, you're giving up black powder actually matters, right?
You've got Ravens with bombs.
Yes.
Like long range 28-inch shooting's pretty far, buddy.
So good, dude. Ravens with bombs are so good. And so here's the other thing, right? I was writing my book. I was writing my novel before any of these new units came out. So if you're going to read the novel, assuming that you buy it and you read it, you're going to be like, well, why don't they just take the Ravens? Why don't they take the Eagles and drop the fucking ring in the volcano? Like, why? Right? But it's people because when I wrote it, there were no Ravens. And so it's like, all the Ravens are dead. I don't know what to tell you. Right? They need to go and reestablish the rookeries and stuff. But,
oh, my God. Yeah. I've got lots of questions. We've slipped straight into apologies to Chris. If Chris was here, he would be keeping an eye on control on the schedule. But we're here, so the schedule can go hang. I have lots of questions. I have two questions for you. Question number one. Yeah, question number one is, what was the idea that got binned immediately that you went with first of all?
So I had an idea where I was essentially going to take the Bannerman story and change it, right? So the idea of that serialized thing was there's a pair of thieves, right, like grave robbers, who go and rob a crypt, and when they do so, they take a magic talisman out of the crypt, right? And what it does is it actually has raised up a, like for lack of a better term, like a revenant lord, right? Who raises up, and then now there's an undead problem in the place, right? Now they're fleeing from that, and they don't want anyone to know that that's their fault, and they join the Bannermen, the mercenary company, and the mercenary company is being hired by one of the petty warlords to go and like take over some stuff, and then. But eventually they're going to have to deal with this undead problem, right? And so it's a cool idea, but the reason why it got binned, two reasons. One, Brendan was like, so you're telling me there's an evil artifact that's causing the characters? Yeah, he goes, well, I got like 17 pitches like that. And the other one was that the new book that's coming out soon, Claws on the Plane, is about a mercenary company on the Artavikian plane. And he's like, I already have one of those. It's getting written right now. I don't need a second one, buddy. Come up with something else. All right, cool. I'll go explore this part instead. Right.
So you walked into NSYNC's band manager with an idea about four guys singing, and he was like that. Wow, man.
That's exactly what I did. I was like, right. But listen, they dance too. Yeah, nobody.
No, he's not. Right. And only one of them can actually sing. He's like that dude.
That's right. That's right. Exactly it.
I was all kind of like, that sounds like a really cool idea, but then okay, fair.
Right.
Weren't you surprised that Claws on a Plane wasn't about like salamanders? I was like, that sounds like salamanders, right?
Right. It sounds like anything but orcs, right?
Right.
So yeah. So I don't know. I mean, orcs on the plane, orcs on a plane, right? It's a different movie, right? It's fantastic.
I don't want these orcs.
That's it. Plane. See, now that has to get written by somebody. That has to get written by somebody immediately, right? Orcs on an airship, right? Snakes on a plane.
It's just Samuel L. Jackson going, I don't want these orcs on the Arcavidian plane.
That's it.
Like that.
Exactly it.
Well, see, now we need somebody in the Ronnie, the Bard of Mantica group to write a story for us. So,
see, I love Mark because Mark is always like, I need other people to do things immediately for me. So he says all the time, I need someone to write something. That's a great idea for someone else to do immediately for me. So I love it. Right.
I just know I can't do it. So,
right. Everyone the role. Mark points it out. Someone else does it.
That's right.
That's right.
That's why he's built for leadership. That's leadership, right? He's more helicopter view. He's up here, guys. He's up here, and we're down here. He's like that. Ooh, a little bit over there.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah. My other question was: you finished the book in 2021. Look, I read this book.
I think so. 2021.
I read this book because you sent it to me in 22. Because I remember I read it on my phone on holiday, on vacation in a resort. And I was drunk most of the time, so I can't remember a lot about the book apart from that I really enjoyed it. And we had a conversation. We were like, "Did you like it?" And I'm like that. I loved it, like that, because I'd had about 7 beers and it was 2 p.m. Right?
I actually remember because I sent it to you, and because I respect your opinion, and you came back and you were like, "Yeah, it's good," and I was like, "It's good for a game novel," and you're like, "No, dude, it's a good novel, period." And I floated around my house for a good couple hours. I was like, oh my God, Steve Hill thinks that what I wrote was legitimate. This is amazing, right? So it was good.
It was a really enjoyable read. I think I came up with, I kind of scrounged around for a couple of pieces of constructive kind of feedback around character development or something like that. But genuinely it's because I'm an obsessive Kings of War fan. Obviously I don't have any other hobbies. I sit here where I'm sitting here, which is my work office, surrounded by Kings of War, just like trash. Just literally I have a giant just sitting here, half painted, should now just come off his base, slightly embarrassingly. So for me, reading fully fleshed out, well-written fiction about a world that I love that suddenly brings it from a 2D kind of picture. So all I have is like a picture of a Mantic thing, right, which I happen to have here. From that to a fully fleshed out 3D world, it's like walking when in Who Framed Roger Rabbit, when he went into Toonland and everything became 3D and that's what it feels like. So when a book is well written, it really thrills me. And I think that's why I get so angry when the books aren't well written, because I'm like, no, you've done it wrong. Go away and do it properly. So I get really excited when I can really experience that. And when I read things like your book and Rise of the Goblin King and Rise of Celestians that really give all of this backstory and tapestry to the world that I'm really interested in, then I get really excited.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. I sent it out to 3 people, and I sent it out to 4 people. 3 people read it all the way through. And, well, I mean, it's, where are you going to go? And
one of them burnt it. He's like, this is garbage.
100 pages in. Right. I forgot to tell you I don't read. No, and all the feedback was actually really good. The feedback was really good. And so I was kind of like on cloud 9. I'm like, yeah, did it, pulled it off. Let's go. Right. And then it was the waiting, right? The waiting of, okay, so how long is it going to be before it actually gets done? And then Brandon couldn't really look at it because he was up to his eyeballs trying to catch up from all the other submissions that he had. So, it gets to the point where, and I think I mentioned this on the other cast when I was talking about it. And I was like, yeah, so eventually he's going to, Brandon's going to read it. He's going to go, this is amazing. You've changed my life. Look how great, because everyone else was like, this is really good. And he came back and was like, we need to do some work. Oh no. Right. Oh no. Right. But a lot of his suggestions were good suggestions, but I was waiting because he's an editor. which is different from a fan, you know? And so, you know, I'm writing for the casual fan and me, and I'm like, is it cool? It's totally cool. I would read this, beep, boop, beep, right? But he's like, yeah, but a lot of your inner monologue, a lot of the characters sound exactly the same. Oh, and also, right, there's a lot of interruption of the flow because of this writing thing that you do. And also, you know, this term doesn't make any sense. And also there's a continuity problem over here. So I had to like, and every one of those, after I kind of brushed off my ego, I was like, yeah, he's right. I totally need to make these changes. So it was good. I mean, it was another level of review that I wasn't used to. And I'm glad that I went through it. It needed to happen, right? Because it actually, I think it gave a better novel overall. Good ways about it. So,
and I'm almost really happy that he's coming back with that kind of level of notes, right? You know, because I think Mantic has suffered from its fiction not being taken seriously. You know, and you take, you know, I'm an avid listener of Unplugged, and you know, Jake's opinions on Mantic's fiction was strong and pretty accurate, which is that it was kind of like well-intentioned but not really there. And I know Brandon was doing it part-time previously, and he's now his full-time job is to edit for this.
Right.
And the quality of novels has been up and up and up and up and up.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that level of scrutiny is being given to them is very encouraging. So it speaks to the future and what's coming, right?
Agreed. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I feel the need to push back to the agenda, otherwise Chris is going to kill me. I have like 17 more questions to ask you, but let's
or
on,
you could just go on with it and go with the flow.
See, I haven't listened to the Countercharge episode yet because I normally listen to that when I travel. So I don't know how much of this Mike's already been through in this kind of level of detail. Can you say everything different?
Different audience.
That would be awesome.
Different audience. I'm assuming your Venn diagrams barely overlap.
Not at all. Yes, different people entirely.
So, I mean, this was your first book, Mike, right?
Yeah.
Had you written a book before? Had you written fiction before, apart from fan fiction?
No, just fan fiction stuff, to be honest. This is my first time being published. So, again, like, I understand why a lot of people are like, I could never write a book, right? I think people listen when it comes to anything that's hard, and people fall into three camps. One, I could never possibly do that ever, and you probably could. Anybody, you could write something, right? Or the second sentiment is, I could totally write a book. It's easy. What's so hard about writing a book? It's like, well, I've read a lot of bad books, buddy. I mean, you could write something and have people be actually mad that they read it, right? And then there's the third one where, and this was, I'm lucky because I fell into that where I was like, I'm pretty sure I can do this. I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm going to go. And when this became an idea, I went and I actually got a couple books on how to write a novel. And I looked at like the structured approaches that people use. And I did that. So when I sat down to write the book, I was like, okay, how am I going to do this? Because I know some of the major flaws that I can't stand. There are two things that I can't stand in a book. One, when you're reading a book, if the author has no idea where it's going to end and they're floating around, and then within the last 20 pages, he goes, oh my God, it's due. And all of a sudden, all the characters show up where they're supposed to be. And it's like, now it's time for the big fight. It looks like we win. Yay. And you're like, that was contrived. Or the characters are established as acting a certain way. And then one of them just kind of throws that out the window for reasons of plot. I have to do this thing that is completely out of character in order to drive the story forward. I hate that, right? So I did character sketches of all the major characters. I did a step-by-step outline of what was going to happen. I knew where it was going to begin. I knew where it was going to end. I filled in the middle. I was like, yes, everything in this thing is clear. The writing is, I wanted it to be clear and cool at the same time. Clear as in I understand what's happening when I'm reading it. I can draw a line between events to get me from here to there. And the characters are cool and the story and the events are fun. That's what I want, right? So I want, Steve, to your point, I want people to read the book and then go, wow, that was not a waste of my life. Thank God, that didn't stink. And two, it was fun to read and I can't wait for him to put out something else because I want to read that too, right? Like that really was the goal. I had this really, I'm very self-conscious about wasting people's time. Like, have you guys ever had people ask for like, we're going to dinner next week, me and my wife, do you know of a good place to go to dinner? And then you go, wow, and you give them a recommendation for a place. And I do this all the time. When I do that and then they go to that place, next time I see them, I go, how was it? Because if they say it sucked, it's like, oh, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I recommended that place. My God, right? So it's kind of like writing the book. I'm like, here's a book you could read. You might like it. Please don't hate it, right? I'm sorry if you do. I'm sorry if you feel like it wasted your time. I didn't mean to do that. Like, I have that mentality about the book and about writing, right? Because in the end, I can write whatever I want for myself, but that's not the point, right?
This is the absolute opposite of the Game of Thrones style writing, which is, I'm going to write whatever the hell I like, and if you don't like it, go hang, because I'm writing for me. You're almost desperately, right, while you're writing for yourself, you really hope that everyone is like, did you like it as much as I liked it? Because I wrote it and it's my baby. It's like you have a child. In fact, writing a book like having a baby, because it takes absolutely ages. It's quite like uncomfortable. And then when it's actually out, or whether you finished it, it takes a while before anyone can enjoy it, because the babies are rubbish, right? When they're first born, you can just look at it for a bit on your own, because no one else wants to see your unfinished manuscript before it's edited, as in put through like proper education. And eventually you get something that's worth enjoying at the end. And then you're like, do you like the thing that I've made? And I'm like, no, you hate your child, right?
That is a fantastic analogy, and I wish I had come up with it. To be honest, that's very detailed and great.
You should write a book.
But it is like that, though. Insofar as, I'm writing, and there are times when you're writing, you can write a section and you can read it, and you can go, nailed it, crushed it, that's awesome, that's great, the wording is right, it reads clean. There are other times when there was one chapter, I must have written the first section of the chapter 4 times. I wrote it, and I was like, yeah. And I scrapped the whole thing, wrote it again, same point of view character. I couldn't get it to work. I was like, all right, so I'll change the point of view guy. I did it, still sucked. I wrote it again with a different point of view character. And then because that character, when I wrote it, I had like his thoughts in mind, and his outlook about the world and the situation, it actually flowed really well, right? And so there are times when you can read it and go, this sucks. I got to get this figured out. But there are other times when you're like, this is gold. Oh, dude, this is amazing, right? And other people are going to read it and go, it's kind of weak part. I don't really like that part. I don't like that character's kind of shit. And you're like, right? Darn it, right? So getting the second opinion totally matters. Everyone loves their kids. I mean, there are days when you might not like them, but you always love your kids, right? Not everybody else has to love your kids. But
true that. Sorry, Clem, you going to ask something?
No, I just wanted to say I guess not everyone has to like a given book, right? Like, I think when you write a book in Panithor, you are speaking to kind of a given community. And so I suppose you also project your experience as a gamer and your experience within this community into what you're trying to achieve with the book. I suppose it would be completely different if you wrote a book like a normal fantasy book not connected to your gaming experience. Did you feel anything special about that? Like your experience as a dwarf player, then writing a dwarf book, did that make a big difference?
Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 things there that I want to, in your question, that I want to explore. The first one has to do with actually like trying to get the gameplay on the table to come across in the novel, right? And so the first thing you have to do is there were a bunch of things that I really thought through, because I took a lot of inspiration from real historical battles, right? I'm an amateur military historian. I do a lot of reading about that when I'm not reading fantasy, and each one of those units on the tabletop has to fight a certain way, something analogous to what we are used to through history, right? So dwarves, they're defensive. They don't really move very much. They are a shield wall. So I did a lot of reading about like, what was that like? What is the press of people, etc. And so getting that feel, so that you feel as if you are in a Kings of War battle, right? One of the things that actually Kings of War does really well is the concept of nerve checks and breaking, right? That units are wavered, units are broken, and that essentially in medieval times and the ancient world, they are actually thinking now that there were not a ton of casualties in the majority of the battle until one of the units broke. If a unit broke, that once you lose unit cohesion, the murder begins, right? And so there was a lot of that thought process in the way that I was writing the battle scenes. And the book essentially is the story of a dwarf clan that leaves Galix Empire, floats across the high sea of Beri, lands, makes an amphibious landing, and then goes to Lingir Kadu. And so you look at that and say, okay, I got to do a landing. So there's a battle. There's another intermediate battle where a bunch of stuff happens, and then there's the final siege, right? And so I wrote all of those with the idea of what would it be like, and how does it reflect the units that I chose from the rule book and the Kings of War rules themselves, right? And then the other side of that, though, is I was writing the book. A majority of the book was written during COVID, and so during the pandemic, and I was one of the few people that was still going to work at my work. I'm a bureau chief at the Department of Transportation here, so I got like 40 people, and all of them went home, and we needed a certain number of people to come into the office just in case to troubleshoot stuff. And I volunteered because during the week I didn't have my daughter, so I would go into work, and there were weeks where I would go in and see maybe 2 or 3 people a week in the building, and the building holds 1,500 people, right? 2,000 people. I remember there was one time where I was I'm there, and I'm on the computer saying, I'm going to get myself a snack. I go over like across the building to the snack machine. I put $1 in the snack machine. Some dude comes around the corner, and I turned and I was like, like in a fighting stance, like, oh my God, I got to fight a zombie, right? I was like, oh, it's another human being. All right, cool. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to sidekick you. Right. So there was this weird, like,
you just remember that you didn't wear any clothes because nobody's around. So no, nothing.
Clem, that feels autobiographical. To be honest.
Definitely, yeah. Well, I live in Germany. I'm not ashamed of saying this.
Just walking around, looking in the mirror, like, oh, thank God for COVID. You ever see a bug? So it's weird, but anyway, so there's that dissociation, and so there are a couple scenes in the book where like the dwarven, the characters are hanging out together, and I kind of really wrote that I was missing that. I was missing that part of the community. I don't play the game because the game is particularly amazing, though I think it is the best war game out there. But I play the game because it's a social experience for me. I like the people that play it. The game itself brings a certain level, a type of person that I really enjoy hanging out with. And so I really missed events, not because I wanted to roll dice and crush face, because I'm not a very good player, but I wanted to go and see everybody, right? I wanted to see and just talk about a Friday night on a tournament. You get to hang out with everyone, and how's your kids? How's your family? What's going on with your job? How you been, right? And we didn't have that for so long, and I missed that, right? It's a big part of my life. And so when you read parts of the book, you can see there's a little bit of like, oh man, I really value everybody hanging out together, and I wrote it like that in some spots. But I don't know if that answers your question, but it's the answer I gave.
It does to some extent. Yeah, no,
I'm Brandon Rossbond of Winged Hussar Publishing. So much universe, so little time.
This is Ronnie Renton, and you are listening to the Mantic Universe podcast.
I'm interested to, understand what it's like to be a player that then writes a book, because I suppose among our listeners, maybe some other folks are thinking about maybe they want to tell the story of their faction or something like this, or
sure.
They want to flesh out Panithor their own way, and not just by playing games and telling stories when they play games, but jump in the big pool like you did and write a whole book. But at the same time, I suppose it's slightly different when you write a book for the universe in which we play games. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah. So it's interesting, right? There was, when I was talking to going back with Matt Gilbert and Dave Simons, and they were like, all right, you can do this, you can do this, you can do this. Don't touch that. That is a third rail. Do not touch that. Don't do anything that's going to fundamentally change the world. Don't make it too big. Don't have any named characters. And I was like, sweet, I'm not gonna do any of that crap. Like I'll make my own bros up, and I'll tell their story. Because once again, first time author, hey man, don't write something that's gonna put us into a corner lore wise. Just go and work through the thing. Cool. Don't mind if I do, right? So in some ways, you give up creative freedom because they give you the limits of your sandbox. But the other side of that is, man, that sandbox is still pretty big. You can do all kinds of stuff. Like I said, like Ben and I worked out the idea of major and minor clans. We figured out the Clansveld. We talked about what Dwarven society was going to be like in the Free Dwarves. We like a lot of that stuff we figured out and then implemented in our writing, right? And then present it to Mantic. So there was a lot of building stuff on that, a lot of meat on them bones. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I could sit down right now and go, I'm going to create my own world. I'm going to have my own world building. It's going to be great. This is a magic system where I could do that, but it would be a mess, right? Because I have to learn how to write before I can go and do all these other cool things that you would do, like a D&D campaign or what have you, And I'm glad for that.
I think it might be also boring sometimes if you have to start and do the whole world right away. I think it would be a lot more interesting if you select a sandbox and you actually dig in that area and do something a bit more complex, a bit more interesting than the overall. If you have to recreate the whole world, I think it's easier to fall into cliche. And so if you have a well-delimited sandbox, or like, I have a precise idea, I want to tell that story within that environment, within these boundaries, with these constraints, I think actually it's a good thing. Because it saves you from just going to all the cliche places.
Sure. It was also strange too, because there was a certain amount of like, I'm writing the you start right from the beginning and say, okay, so I know what these unit types represent when I say an abyssal dwarf grotesque, but what if someone picks this up and they haven't read the book or they don't know the background of it? So and then am I being pedantic by over explaining stuff that other people are like, move along, bro, I know what this is, right? So I had to find a balance for that too, right? I mean, the books are targeted nominally toward a niche audience within a niche hobby, right? But maybe not. Like, I've read game fiction for games that I don't play. Some of the stuff's actually really good if you can understand kind of what, if the author is willing to give you enough information to give you the context for why something is happening and why it's cool, then cool. If it's too much, you're like, man, I don't need all this exposition. You're killing me, right? So I had to really walk a fine line when I was writing a novel to make sure I had enough information so that people who didn't know Panathor could follow along, right? And then obviously, if you want to know more, right, I'm one of a couple authors who are writing a bunch of books in this big world, and come get it, right?
Yeah, it's when actually, as a fan reading a book that's in the world you're a fan of, I think it's fun the other way. And I think Rob Berman did this very well in his Goblins book, is that you're reading about something and then suddenly you go, oh, I know what that is. I know what that is. That's like Bane Chant or whatever, right? And he's not saying, and then he cast the rune Bane Chant and blah, 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 blah. And he had a lute, which was very insatiable. But no, he wrote it in a way that made sense in the world, but you could recognize it, right? If you were, and that's kind of a sweet way to do it. I think that's sweet.
Yeah, there's a couple references to that stuff in my writing where I didn't come out and immediately say the unit is being healed, or the unit is regenerating, or the unit is being Bane chanted. Yeah. And you can see it, right? Yeah.
You mentioned the landing, which is what's depicted in the cover, right? Did you get any input on that? Did they come to you to say what do you want, or did they just kind of read it and go to the artist and say make this? How did that come about?
Yeah. So I was writing the thing full steam, and sometimes you write an idea, you just write it, and then the words come out and you go, well, what am I going to do with that, right? So one of the things that you find out is they get a bunch of transports to transport them over. They don't, because they're leaving the Imperial lands without Galac's permission. They can't go, hey, Empire of the Dwarves, I need to borrow a navy. They have to find their own ships to get them across, right? And one of them is a, for lack of a better term, a pirate captain, right? A smuggler. And the captain essentially has taken the ship that she has and changed the look of it to be as Basilean as it can be, right? To hide the fact that she's a smuggler, right? And the book describes that. And so when you look at so I wrote that, and then I was like, well, that shouldn't be a problem, no big deal. And then all of a sudden they come out with, once again, it's a while ago, they come out with Armada, and they go, well, this is what the dwarf ships look like. I'm like, well, those are cool. I don't have any of those in my book. And then, wow, but there's going to be ravens eventually that I should write. So there's no way for me to know any of this stuff because of when I was writing, right? the idea goes, and I send it over, and it goes to their artists, right? And Matt looks at it and goes, "What is this?" So I explain to him. I go, "Well, this is actually what's going on." He goes, "Okay, well, we can work with that." And then meanwhile, they're doing art for the book cover and also to be used in the next version of the rule book, right? So they hired an artist. They is this cool? And I said, yeah, it's totally great. Like anything you give me, I'm going to agree to, right? This totally looks awesome. But there was some back and forth. Okay, so is there a best sigil on the sales, right? Or what, how does it look? Is there a holy icon? Like, no, there's not a holy icon. It's impossible. Like, how would you do that, right? But anyway, so it's that level of detail that you have to go back and forth on when it comes to coming up with the art and the look and things like that. And I've already had comments on Facebook where people are like, what is that on the cover? Why is that on there? And the answer is, go read the book, dude. Like, if you want to know, go spend $11 on Kindle and just throw me a bone here if you want to find out. Like, I'm not going to tell you, right? Go check it out. Of course, I just told you guys. Could you cut the entire last 15 minutes? No? Is that?
Yeah, you don't have to worry, mate. No one listens. Right? It's fine.
No one listens. You're fine.
Dozens of listeners, friends. Dozens of listeners. Right? Our reach is in the tens. Right? Yeah.
The low double figures we're reaching. It's all good. I think you're okay. But all of them will buy a copy. So it's all very good. Yeah, 100%. So speaking of that, what are you going to do with all the money? I mean, I'm assuming the going to buy a townhouse.
It's such a piece of work, right?
Just a villa,
Just maybe one in Europe.
So, it's just, I keep thinking of like these one-hit wonder people from like 1986. They got to be getting like residuals of like 42 cents every once in a while from Spotify. Like, hey, somebody listened to the Safety Dance again, right? Here's your check for $1.20. You know what I mean? Like, I'm thinking that's about as big as this is going to get.
Yeah. Right? Well, I just, I remember Mark Barber, who wrote he wrote a lot of the early Pius. He wrote Pius, which is a great book, and he wrote the Basilean novels. Mm-hmm. He's just been picked up by Black Library. He's just done some stuff for Black Library, which is amazing, right? So, I mean, has this, with sticking with my children metaphor, you gave birth like 3 years ago, right? That's usually long enough to forget how awful it was giving birth. That's why children have 2 years between them, and generally, because by that point you've forgotten how bad it was. Are you ready to go again? Are you going to go again? You going again? You doing another one? What is it about? You doing it? You doing it?
So, yes, I feel as if I am okay. So, yes, I want to write another novel. I have an idea for another novel. So the original thing that I was going to do was I was actually working on a sequel to Honors Price. But the problem is that with Ben coming out with 3 Dwarf novels and then mine, if I go with another, it's like, hey, the only thing that people love in Panathor is we need more cowbell. Right? We need more dwarves. I put Dan in, right? So we're not going to do that. So instead, I have a different idea that I've been working on, which I'm sketching out now, which is a ogre mercenary and his red goblin sidekick. And so I've already spoken to some people, and I got the green light on the idea. So there's that, and that's about as much as I want to say for now because I'm still writing on the stuff, right? But
so, do we need COVID 2.0 for you to write it, or are you actually planning to do it in the? Because I suppose it takes a lot of energy to write a book. Like my wife kind of writes books as well.
Yeah.
Different, but it's an insane thing to do, right? Like I suppose it takes a pandemic or you being full time on it or you being a masochist to do it. So where do you stand?
That's an excellent question. One of the problems that I'm going to have with putting the time in is I've gotten another promotion at work. So there's a little more responsibility. I'm doing a little more traveling now. I've got other things that I do. So, at the time during COVID, I wasn't teaching martial arts. I wasn't going to the dojo, but now that's I teach on Wednesday nights and I go and I take class 2 nights a week. And then I got married after COVID, remarried. And so now I went from having 1 kid part-time to 3 kids all the time. And it's fantastic, right? It's a basket of blessings, right? But those take up time. They take up time. And for me to be an effective husband and father and teacher and also work, I don't know if I could fit in writing the way that I did. Like if someone came to me now and said, we need you to write a novel in a year, I'd be like, no, you're not getting a novel in a year. You're getting a novel in 2 years, right? and I'm not going to give you 175,000 words, right? I'll give you 135,000 words. We'll see how that goes, right? I don't know if I could do it, to be honest, right? Without more lead time. But I think that if I was to, the other thing I want to do is I want to see how this goes. I'm not going to lie. I'm hoping that people read it. I'm hoping that people say that it was worth their time. I hope that they like it. If people come back and go, I didn't really care for your writing, Mike, I'm like, okay, well, I won't subject you to it anymore, right? And then I'll go find something else to do in my life. You know what I mean? But if I do get any kind of like positive response after people legitimately read it and go, wow, that was really good, thanks. Thank you for writing that, right? Then I will be incentivized to go and put in the time and make something else for the world to consume and not be annoyed at, right?
No, that makes sense. I mean, as you mentioned, right? Like you're not writing this to buy another villa in Europe or something like this. That this is not the motivation, not the direct motivation, at least. So
not even close.
There has to be something in it, in a way to put yourself through the effort, let's say, that this represents. Yeah, that's true. Well, we'll see. I haven't read it yet, so.
Well, it's not out yet. But the end of July, it's supposed to be coming out. So.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. I'll read it and tell you if it's worth writing the second one.
That's exactly what I'm looking for, Clem. Thank you. Right.
And you can believe Clem will be 100% honest with you. It's okay. We just need to launch it with the tagline, "The Rogue One to Stoddard's Star Wars." That's what.
How much more down could you be? Right? They're all dead. They're all dead. What happened?
Everybody died.
So many Bothan spies died.
It's
so awful. So I have it's really actually really funny. Now I want to write something like that, except for I would do it poorly and it would just be tragic but not cool. Right. Mark, do you have any questions at all? I mean, you've been sitting there all quiet and kind of like nodding after.
I'm just waiting. These guys like to talk, so actually, I was just sitting here thinking about it, and one of the things that was very upsetting for me about the whole Halpi's Rift thing, or the global campaign before that, was that the Free Dwarfs even got kicked out of the Halpi region, and it's probably because of this arc. We clearly won that during the global campaign. And got kicked out. I was a little salty about that. So
yeah, once again, the weird things happen to drive forward the plot, right? So it is what it is.
Absolutely. So how did you go to them with the idea that the Free Dwarfs were going to go back to Halpi, or
no? That was their idea. That was their idea.
Okay, all right.
They were like, just so you know, this is happening, and right, and they were like, this is Halpi's Rift. Here's a preview of that. I think I got it like 2 months before it came out. And then also, this other thing is going to happen in the future. Do you think you could write into that? I said, yeah, I'll totally do that. They gave me that overarching story, right? And then a couple months later, when Ben was writing his novels, he let me in on his overarching story. And I was like, oh my God, right? So, I knew the spoiler before everyone else did. And then I had to write around that, once again, like, I can't touch any of the stuff you're doing, so I'm going to go over here. I'm super glad that our time frames in the world don't overlap, because it would have been really hard for me to write at the same time Ben was writing in the same neighborhood in the same time period. That would have been a nightmare. Oh my God. Right. So, because every time I would change something, he would have had to, or we had to, and it's like trying to build a horse with a committee. You would come out with a camel. It would have been.
Oh, it's like tough. Sharing a sandbox with another kid. Like, who does that, right?
Wow, right. And as far as he's concerned, sharing a sandbox with a cat, right? Just dumping in here. It's awful.
So you mentioned there's an arc. Is the arc done after your novel, or is there more to come?
Oh, with my story is self-contained and done. Like I said, okay. I have an idea for a sequel. I know what the characters would do. I actually have a really cool idea. But I don't think I'm ever going to be able to write it because I'll never get it published. If I write it, it's never going to come out, right? It'll never come out. There's too many other books with too many other factions that need to get explored, right? So,
or a short story.
Yeah, short stories
3,000 words on the website.
I see what you're doing. I see what you're doing there, right?
I mean, we love 3,000 words short stories on the website. I'm sure Mantic commissions some of those every now and then. So if you don't want to go through the pain of writing 120,000, write 2,000 or 3,000 and then pitch that to them and get it published on the website. People love it.
Yeah, I probably could do that. Right?
Just
I don't
saying.
think I could tell the story in 3,000 words. But
you can do several of these, like do part 1, part 2, and suddenly you have 1,000 words.
I like
get commissioned twice, so that's better. you can buy a better pool for the villa, So.
Clem learned it from Mark. All you got to do is write a couple 1,000-word thing because I asked you to. Just go ahead and do it.
Go ahead, go on.
What are you doing around here?
Please make it good. Please make it good as well.
And make it good. Hey, listen, I really don't waste my time either while you're at it. I love this. This is great.
And the main character is called Mark, so it'll be fun.
There you go. You got to dwarfify it though. So
I have I actually use this analogy at work. One of the things that I have found, I was, I'm gonna find this hard to believe. I was mildly unemployed when I got out of college for about 4 months. I was living at home before I got my first job, and so I ended up teaching myself how to juggle and do basic magic tricks with my hands, like hide the cigarette, that kind of stuff. And every time I show people I juggle and I juggle 3, the first thing they ask is, "That's cool. Can you juggle 4?" And I say, "Okay, yeah." So I do 4. That's cool. Can you juggle 5? It's like, what's going to make you guys happy? You can juggle 0, right? So how about that? So I feel like this is a very similar discussion where it's yeah, really just go ahead and write something for me and make it good. All right. Don't waste my time. All right, good. I'll get right on it.
No, see, what I'm thinking about, Mike, is I'm thinking about a relaunch of the Mantic Dwarf model range, and similar to Rob Bourbon writing us some really good stuff prior to the launch of some of the sci-fi, we could have you do that. See, so
this is what he does, right? This is what he does. Would someone please turn off the air in Mark's room? Somebody please. What is happening over there, right? All I need you to do now is redesign the entire Dwarf range for both sci-fi and fantasy. I'll get right on it.
I didn't say you had to do it. I'll work on it. That's fine. But,
So, Mike, you're in charge, and now dwarves get 2 new plastic sprues. What are they?
Ooh, good question. That's a good one.
That's a great question. So if there's 2 plastic sprues that have to get changed right now for dwarves.
Not necessarily changed. You get to create 2 new plastic sprues. It could be a redo of an existing one, something completely new, a rustic one, resin stuff, whatever you like. You're in charge. You decide. Tell them.
Don't say spear levy. Whatever you do.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. But I do have to say, so there's 2 of them. The one is and this is going to be just pedantic and awful, but I mean it. The first one is the basic Dwarf Warrior. I'm not a fan of the basic Dwarf Warrior mini. I do like that. Okay, so GW was would you like a meatball wearing an iron shirt with a beard? And yeah, I love meatballs so that all of their dudes are round in all the wrong spots, right? But so I do like the fact that the Mantic dwarves are proportioned as if they are muscular, but they all have this weird hunch, so they look like weird gnomes with flat helmets. I hate them. I hate the minis. I hate them. I would redo those so that there's more, so that they look cooler. And then the second thing that I would do is the minis that they use for bulwarkers are impossible to put together. They're impossible to put together. So you mentioned spear levy, and anybody with a spear, apparently this has to be metal and that's plastic and nothing glues right. Everything's stuck to your hands. It totally sucks. I don't use them, right? I can't be bothered. So I would redo those 2 tomorrow. I would do it. First things first, get that stuff done, right? Rework the look. But
so, do you have any artistic direction that you would want to take the dwarves into? You say you don't like the flat helmets. How else would you want them? Again, so you're a dwarf expert, so might as well ask your opinion. Yeah, I'm serious. I don't mean it as a joke. You're very deep in dwarfs. Tell us how you envision the actual plastic Mantic dwarfs.
So if you were going to sit down and design, so this is a question that actually goes a little deeper, right? If you were going to sit down and design a panoply, the armor and weapons for a being that is strong and shorter of stature than most of the things that it is fighting, then your shields would probably come up in such a way that they would come up to cover the top of your head. They may have a ridge of spikes or something along the top so you could bash with them. The axes themselves, I don't know if you want a ton of room to strike with an axe, right? I actually think that you want maybe a crescent top of the shield to be able to stick your spear through, right? And so you're actually making a wall, right, like that. And then if you are using, I actually when I was writing the shield breaker scenes or the shield breaker scenes, I was like, well, if you have a giant two-handed weapon, you need to swing that around, right? So you're not going to fight in a tight formation. You're fighting a loose formation, like the huskarls, right, from the English. And so you want to have those minis be actually very dynamic, where they're swinging over your heads, etc. I actually have a description in the book of how that would work, where like the line of guys with the weapons are standing and getting ready to strike, and each one of the Thanes has a dude with just a shield that runs around in front of him to protect him while he's getting ready to swing, and then boom, smack a goblin across the side of its head and just crush it. So there has to be a little more dynamic action to it, right? So in my opinion, I think that's how you would want. You want your defensive units to look as if they're really those shields. It's almost like a Roman shield with a little slot in it so you can see out, right? I think that's how you would want to do it, because you want to be able to take the space and then push, and then take the space and push, right? On the battlefield in order to gain ground and eventually grind your opponent down. Or you want to be able to take your weapons and strike at the legs, right? You want to be able to strike at your opponent's legs, because that's where you're at. Man, you hamstring somebody, that's the end of that, right? I've had my knee dislocated. It sucks, right? There's no more fighting after that. I don't care how many stripes on my black belt I got, right? Gonna writhe on the ground and go, someone please put that back where it belongs, So that's my thought. And then once again, I think flat helmets are silly because they don't actually conform to the way your head looks. It needs to be rounded, it needs to be padded, right? And you don't want anything flat, because if something hits any part of it, the entire thing goes down onto your head. You want it to deflect, right? So there's a reason why those conquistadors had those conical helmets, So anyway, that's my opinion on that.
So if you were designing, So if you were designing the dwarf range again too, would you do a design difference between the Imperial dwarfs and the free dwarfs?
Sure, of course, right? Yeah. So
dwarves, I would think you would, but
I think so. So the free dwarves, when they would fight, one of the things that the Empire has for it is money, right? And so when you look at a set of Imperial, like an Imperial regiment, all of the dudes in the regiment should be panoplied the same and with excellent equipment. So everybody's got steel all over the place. They've got high tempered whatevers. Right now, the only difference is that the shield shape goes from kite to round, right? It's a kite shield for the Empire. It's a round shield for the free dwarves, and that's it. Okay, cool, I guess. And it's easy to do. But in contrast, you would want your free dwarf minis to have, I don't know, a lot less like full face shield helmets. You're going to have a lot more leather and a lot less steel, I mean, still defensive, right? But you're not having that heirloom quality stuff. I think one of the things that makes the Imperial units so cool is that there are more mechanized units. There's more gunpowder. There's more, right? Because that stuff takes money. You know what I mean? So that I think is actually the difference between those two, how they play on the table, and also how they work socially, right? Because your army is a reflection of the social character and the social wealth that you can bring to bear to fight, right? Poor countries, everybody goes out there and you got your spear because that's what the guy's got. Maybe that guy in the back's got a pitchfork. He's got an iron pot for a hat, right? Like you go out and you fight with what you got, So does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was one of the things, because I've read the book, I know that you go into Abyssal Dwarf lore, and there isn't a lot of Abyssal Dwarf lore in there, and that was very cool to read as well, kind of because people talk about the Immortal Guard, and you know what they talk about. If you play the game, you have Immortal Guard, and you have Grotesque, and you have this, that, and the other, and there's no thought. And one of my main things about evil races in fantasy books is like, who makes their trousers? This is a real thing for me, right? If you have the undead and you have a bone giant, or the Mantic giant, who makes the Mantic giant's trousers, guys? Who makes his trousers? Right. And when he's not crushing people with his giant club, what's he doing? He's just who makes his breakfast? I don't know where he gets it.
So I used to say that about when we were playing Warhammer. It's like you read the Dark Elf background, and you're like, how does anyone make food here? How does anyone get through their day without just getting ritually murdered just walking down the street? Like, it's stupid. It's stupid, and it's written by a 13-year-old for 13-year-olds. It's dopey, right? So I totally agree with you. The abyssal. So the two things. Everything with me is two things. Today is two things.
Two things.
Two things. There. The first thing that I really wanted to be aware of was the idea of the evil guy who's evil because he's evil, right? And so it's like, dude, I'm evil. Look at me. I just twiddle my mustache and I go and I murder everybody because reasons, right? It's like, Jesus Christ, right? So essentially, in my opinion, the root of most evil is not money, but it is selfishness. I think most people, evil right now in the world walks through selfishness, and it comes from being self-absorbed and shitty, right? And not caring about others, like complete lack of empathy, right? So abyssal dwarves, each one of them believes that they are God's gift to Panathor. They are the ultimate in anything, and they deserve everything because they deserve it, right? Okay, cool. But that doesn't mean that you can get away with just being evil for the sake of being evil. Like, why? What are they trying to achieve? They want status. Why? They want riches. Why? They want control. Why, right? So, and then how do you create villains that are, they have to have a flaw in some way to make it so that they are obviously villains. And right, because the one of the tropes that I've actually found in watching like a lot of recent serialized shows and Marvel stuff and some other stuff is that they try to paint the bad guy as being a completely reasonable worldview. So you understand why they're doing it with completely unreasonable actions to back it up, right? So like I'll use the Falcon and Winter Soldier. If anyone's seen that, it's actually it's really good series on Disney Plus. And the bad guys there are essentially I'm going to call them an activist group that is trying to, once everybody comes back from the snap, like people are in concentration, they're in camps. There's people who come back and they don't have houses anymore. Now you have to feed like half the population. And there's all kinds of upheaval on what's going on there. And so they're like, we need to treat these people fairly. Wow, that's a reasonable thing. Oh, and we're going to murder people to make our point. It's like, well, that's very unreasonable, right? But it's like it's a trope, you know. It's a trope. So I tried to give the bad guys in this, they are evil because they're intensely selfish. They're self-absorbed. They believe that they deserve all the good things at the expense of everyone else. And then what is their flaws? What is their good stuff? And then what is their flaws? And then if you take a look, I did the same thing with the good guys. I'm like, hey, these are the good things that they have, but these are their flaws. Now the flaws aren't expressed as evil, but they are expressed as problems for them to overcome, right? And I think the big difference between a villain and a hero, when it's done well, is that you want the hero to overcome their flaws, and you want the villains to be overcome because of their flaws, right? Does that make sense?
That makes sense. I mean, we're not big fans of good versus evil on the show here. We tend to look for more interesting, characters. Yeah. And I'm good because I'm good, and I'm bad because I'm bad goes only so far. So no,
agreed, right?
This is Max McDougall saying, so much universe, so little time.
This is Rob Fnuff from the Countercharge Podcast, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe Podcast.
And you could almost say that in the big scheme of things, the Abyssal Dwarves are there to provide the impetus to explore the differences between the Imperial Dwarves and the Free Dwarves, because that's where the real conflict is, right? In those two societies and their outlook on the world and how they express it through their cultures, right? And the friction between those two is the reason why the Free Dwarves can't be there. They have to go back. They have to fight the big bad, right? And then the other side of that is when you are looking at the Abyssal Dwarves as a faction, once again, because you have to relate it back to the game and the stuff that's on the table. A lot of the stuff that's in there is cool. The units are really cool, right? And there isn't a lot of lore that describes what's up. There's a half a page here and a half a page there and a half a page over there. So it's like, okay, well, what do I do with this, right? Because there isn't an overarching story with the Abyssal Dwarves like there is with the Free Dwarves and the Imperial Dwarves, right? There's just the Abyssal Dwarves exploded onto the scene, punched all the Free Dwarves in the face, kicked them off the Halfling Peninsula. Yay them. They won. Okay.
And
now
they're really mean, right? And it's just like, well, right? They're just like us, except for the murder. But
Except for all the murder.
whatever you kind of constructed, and you didn't go heavily into it, but you kind of laid the outline for how it works, for how it physically works, and that's why I really enjoyed that. And almost their layeriness of the depths of depravity that the not the Eye of the Master, but the Ironcaster goes into in his construction of his creatures. To the point where even the Abyssal Dwarfs are like, it's a bit much, but
it's super. Like I think I made the offhand comment at one, like, oh, so they're about to fight a big battle, and the Overmaster comes out, Alborz comes out, and he looks over at this giant winged monstrosity that Zareen has put together, his brother, the Ironcaster, right? And he's like, wow, that is amazing. And the cool thing is that that's going to live for a whole 2 weeks before it dies. Right? This offhand, like, it's so unnatural it can't live, but it's going to be great for now. Let's fly. Let's go. Right?
Let's go.
And that whole attitude of I'm stitching stuff together and it's all temporary and I don't care. Right? Because for Zareen, science and progress is this just warping stuff together and seeing what sticks. Right? And for Alborz, he's like, these are tools that I can use. Right? And that is the crux of them, right? Of who they are. There's no empathy, right?
He's the scientist who, like, these fools are holding back my experiments, and you've given me the freedom, but the freedom that he explores is actually quite sick. But it is kind of delicious and depraved in its kind of depravity.
Well, I'm glad you like
nicely it. Yeah, that's not. Just to be clear, that's not. I was like that. I love that. Oh, I've read that many times over. My pina colada in wherever I was.
That's right.
There you go. Now these are the two Abyssal Dwarf brothers or something that are in the book, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they are the main antagonists. Yep.
Okay. Cool.
Guys.
Read the book, Mark. God.
I will.
God, spoiler warning.
There it is.
Well, we've already just given like 7 spoilers. By the way, at the beginning of this podcast, can we note down it's we're an hour and 20 minutes in when we say there may be small spoilers as we discuss the book. We'll do our best to avoid them.
I think we've walked the line between spoilers and teasers. It's a thin line, but not knowing what's in the book, I feel more teased than spoiled. So
I've given you some characters that you will be that you will meet by the 5th chapter. So if you stick with me for 40 pages, you will have seen all the stuff.
That's all we're asking, folks. 40 pages, right? We'll get.
That's not what I'm asking. How dare you, Mark? How dare you, Mark?
Trust me, another 10 minutes, it's going to be great. Another 10 minutes, it's going to be great.
You guys are brutal, man.
He's asking you by 3 hard copies and get them. How do we get them signed? Oh, we're going to have to go somewhere you are. Hey, I'm genuinely thinking about going to Orktown next year. This is on the potential list because we're looking at, like, I'm wearing my Vanguard GT top, by the way, which Mike Atkins gave me because he's a nice guy. I enjoyed it so much, and I want to go back again, but with some friends. And then I talked to Pikachu, and he said that Orktown is his favorite GT out of all of the GTs.
We just had it last weekend, and it was fantastic. It was fantastic as always. It is just a fantastic venue. It's a great location, and the guys who run it are just maniacs. It's so good, and the trophies are top notch. Like if no one has gone out to the do a search for Orktown GT and just look at the trophies that these guys make. They're all handmade. It's bananagrams. How good they
are. Crazy. I've seen them. I have to hope that I don't win anything. I won't. I didn't. I don't win things as it happens. That's not my bag. But if I win anything, I could not bring it back. So that would be the problem. So I'd have to make sure that. Get
it shipped. We'll get it shipped to you. Right?
Yeah. I thought you were describing how I'm playing, which is also true. That's a slightly different pronunciation. Oh, shipped. Sorry. I got that.
Shiphead.
There you go. So, Mike, what makes it so good? I mean, I've always wanted to go to it myself, but I mean, go ahead, sell us. Give us the elevator pitch.
Okay, so if I was going, yes. So the thing that makes it really good is the fact that the crowd, crowd makes the party. So it's a really great crowd. I think our scene in the Northeast is the perfect mixture of casual, artistic, and competitive, right? And so the guy who runs the whole thing, he goes by the moniker of K2, Kenneth Heisler. He gets up in front of everybody at the beginning and says, "Oh, welcome to the Orktown GT." We go, "Yay!" And he goes, "Hey, listen, none of you guys are Napoleon. I don't know the rules very well. So if you really care about winning that much, this might not be the best venue for you. Just so you know, right? And so he sets the tone right in the beginning, like, be cool, we're all hanging out. And it's set at a curling club, right, on the Cape, which doesn't sound like much, but it has a bar. And I think I drank 4 or 5 Orcto coolers over the course of Saturday. I don't know what's in them, but they're green, they're delicious. And then at night, like, you're on Cape, right? And so essentially that's a resort area where you've got all kinds of fantastic food, and it's off season, but the weather's still nice, right? So, and then, like, everybody goes to K2's for a party on Saturday night, and he refurbishes old vintage video games. So, like, you go into his house and he's got like 7 cabinets in the garage and 3 in the basement, and just, you know, people are hanging out playing Street Fighter and shooting the breeze. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite events, and it's only got, like, he caps it at 40. So, you know, it's pretty intimate. Like, the other one that I would suggest you go to, guys, if you're going to come here, would be Crossroads. Crossroads has 100 people. It's teams of 4. It's the cool thing about Crossroads is, what if you had a tournament and everybody was there, right? Like, that's the cool thing about Crossroads. But if you want to go and, like, hang out and really have some quality time with everybody, Orktown is where it's at. And the trophies are bananas. The attitude is so chill and just, it's so cool, right?
Main problem with Crossroads is that it's the week after Clash of Kings here.
Yeah, I know. And that's the problem I have with Clash of Kings, right? Is the week before Crossroads. And, well, it's actually, I mean, like, we've talked about this. My kids are almost out of needing us to be around. It's probably going to be better if we were gone. So I think once I hit that, I'll be able to go to England for Clash, right? But we're getting close.
Very good. So why do they have the caps, like Vanguard's cap too? So is that a common thing up in your area?
Well,
or is it just those two?
No, the venue only holds so many people.
That's it. So
right?
they don't want to get any bigger. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'd say, where are we going to put them? You can't go out on the actual ice rink. I mean, that's going to end up being a real problem, right? Or out in the parking lot. So I would
absolutely, that would be hilarious. Put both you and the table on skates. You'd be like, whoa! Your
that
movement might be a bit shonky.
That's it. Everything's a little janky, just so you know, right?
That's very much how I play, as it happens.
Clearly.
Yeah. We've slipped into Mantic news. How did you do? And I assume you won first place.
I did not. I went 4-1 with a dwarf list that was 3 hordes of dwarves, 2 shield breakers in the formation, and a couple other ancillary pieces. But it was a great time. The winner of the entire thing was Jonathan Neeson, who came with a Night Stalker army, and he is, I think, one of the best. He's one of the best players in the Northeast. He actually made the Masters last year, and he had problems with his flight. There was a storm outside of DC on the day that he was supposed to fly, and it grounded all the planes for about 15 hours. And so he didn't actually make it to Omaha after going all year and crushing everybody. And right, so it was kind of a shame, but it was a fantastic event. If you want to see more, I think K2 posted 1,000 pictures up on the New England War King site on Facebook. Right, so you want to go check that out. But
he also, I recommend people, if you go to the Nuke Facebook page, just to check out his matchups video, which does contain the matchups at the end for about 12 seconds. But the other 5 minutes of the 6-minute video is a shot-by-shot recreation of 2001 using what's the character called that
using Rags? Yep, Rags and So that was this year. This year was the recreation of 2001. Last year they did Blade Runner, which was just bananagrams, right? And so essentially the whole concept, not to bore everybody, but the whole concept is like when they were playing a lot out there, each one of the guys had their own army, and then they built up a bunch of lore about their army. And K2 actually had I think a master's or something in like Russian studies. And so his whole thing was this idea that Skullface, that was the general the general of his orc army, and Skullface essentially he patterned it all around like, what if Stalin wasn't a maniac, but instead he was actually like benevolent and cool, but it still has all that same like iconography, right? So essentially the idea is that Skullface has brought in a new era of prosperity for all the orcs in his kingdom. which has allowed them to achieve things like create cyber people and go to the moon. So the whole thing this time was about going into space. So like the best painted trophy was a giant mural of the Earth from space with like a Sputnik type capsule above it that was actually like handmade with a miniature skull face in a walking spacesuit that he made. Right, 3D printed, handmade the whole thing. He's like, "There's your trophy. Good luck flying back to Austin." Right? Good luck flying back to Texas there, Ryan Smith. That's what you get for winning, right? And by the way, Ryan Smith's army was gorgeous. Oh my God, right? Which is to be expected. He well deserved. But it's that kind of stuff, right? Where it just the lore builds up, and now it's the most benevolent, amazing society. So yeah, if you want to go look that up on YouTube, and you will be like, "What am I watching? And why am I still watching it?" Right? So good.
It was really at one point when he gets blown out the airlock, it's just him running back from the camera, pretending he's not there, spinning it around in the air. Woo!
Right. And so that's Doug Blake, who's Doug Blake, Joe Taylor, and K2 are the three guys out there, and geniuses. And Doug is in every shot with the puppet. He's in every shot, but he's like, "I'm not here. Just don't worry about it." Never breaks the fourth wall. Just kind of like act like I'm not here, and it'll totally make sense. There's one scene where Rags is in space, and they couldn't get like a bubble to put on top of his head, so they just put like an old plastic bag with a rubber band, right? So, right? It's so janky and amazing. So Mark, you wanted to know why to go to Ortown, because it's janky and amazing. That's why, right? It doesn't take itself too seriously. Right.
There you go. So did you get to walk home with a trophy or of any sort? Or
I didn't get any of the cool trophies this year. No.
Oh, okay. I was just wondering.
Essentially what happens is like one of the other things that he does is when you get a trophy, you actually get a medal too. And so what he has been asking people to do the last couple of years, he goes, "Listen, what he does now for paint judging is everybody lays out their stuff after round 3 on Saturday. And he has essentially a cocktail hour where everybody gets a free drink, and everybody stands there with their medals that they've won from previous orc towns, and they walk around and rate the armies together, right, over fancy drinks. It's really quite social after all said and done. But like there's dudes walking around, like one of my buddies he just retired from the military, so he was there this year in his dress blues with all of his medals hanging off next to his real medals, right? Because they're just as legit in that venue. It was hilarious, right? So.
Yeah, it does sound like a really good time. So I've always wanted to go. So
yeah, it's
absolutely.
Fantastic.
I was already sold. So
dude, if you're coming, it's gonna be amazing.
It's probably happening. Vanguard was amazing this year. So although Zelensky bottled it for some kind of like I'm in too much pain to walk nonsense reason like that, and Cherepika bottled it for some I've got COVID reason or something as well, and he was supposed to be playing me as well. But then his brother turned up, who it turns out is exactly the same as Jake, just slightly shorter. Like they're like you just copy pasted, but like slightly offset, and right? It's the same human.
It's like if you left Jake in Tupperware so he didn't age as much. Right, and then took him out. Like that's Noah. It's fantastic. Right.
He shrunk slightly because of the compression. But he's the same person.
Dehydration. Right,
but he turned up and he's like, "Oh hey, I'm Noah. I'm Jake's brother." And I'd been drinking for the entire weekend, and I was jet lagged to all hell. So I had the most vague conversation. He probably thought, "Who's this idiot? It's come from England." And I was like, "Oh hey, yeah, hey, wow, hey," because I drank this cherry vodka that I'd found in the freezer, and the guy who was helping Mike run it went, "Can someone drink that up because someone left it here last year?" And I was like, "That I will."
I'm your man.
Yeah, Sunday morning. So,
right.
Apologies to Noah if he's definitely not listening to this, but if he was,
if he was, you should post up and say, "No, I talked about you," and then you get another listen.
At 1 hour 31, please.
Yeah, you don't tell him that. He has to swim through it in order to get there.
So with your hectic life schedule, Mike, struggling to bring us back to the agenda once again, given that you do karate 6 days a week or the Ninja Warrior thing, and also now God Lord of Housing or whatever it was, do you actually ever get time to? And you do D&D as well? You D&D, right?
Yeah, so me and my buddies from college still get together every Sunday to play D&D, right? So we go over to a buddy's house, the dinner, and we all hang out for a couple hours, and that way we stay in touch. It is one of the best things because that right now is our social interaction, right, between the kids and everything else. This is kind of what we do, right? But to have that be steady and to know that that's going to be circled on the calendar, because if not, man, I got some other friends that. I just had a 50th birthday party the other day, and I loved every single person at that party. It was a surprise party. My wife threw it for me. It was amazing. But there were people in there that I was like, oh, my God, it's so great to see you face to face. I haven't seen you in 10 months, right? Like I text, hey, buddy, how you doing, that kind of stuff. But that constant touch point, that weekly touch point, you know that this is happening, right? We skip every once in a while when life gets in the way, but for the most part, it is something that we kind of stick to. So it plays double duty for me, right? It is legitimate friend time, and it's an excuse to get everybody together, right? And I wouldn't trade that for the world, to be honest, right?
That's 30 years of story building,
that's
right?
A lot.
Since college.
That's a lot.
That seems.
That's a lot.
Do you still have the same characters? Like 30 years of character backstory? And like, do you remember when we were young halflings? That kind of.
I level 1500.
Right? Like, there's a part of me that wishes that we had done that. But, edition changes make that. I mean, listen, when we started playing, it was D&D second edition. So, I actually started with the big red box. But, we've been playing together since second ed. So every time a new ed comes out, it's like, wow, you can't play an Inquisitor anymore. That character doesn't exist, right? So you usually, restart, or somebody has an idea in a different world. But we have been playing not the same characters, but the same people have been playing together now for a very long time. And, some people have come and joined and some people have left, but it's always, this is the thing that happens. And once again, I do all this gaming stuff not to win. I do it for the community and as an excuse to hang out with people that are cool, and there's nothing else. There's no other reason to do this, right? If you want to come in and be like, I'm going to beat face and move out, then go play Magic the Gathering, get out of here,
Do you rotate DM or is it always the same DM?
No, we rotate DM, right? We rotate DM. So. And then sometimes you'll do something out of a book, and sometimes you make something up. And usually the DM will run a game for about 2 years, and then maybe hand it off to the next guy once the story's done. So
the longevity of that is outstanding.
It blows my mind too, man. It blows my mind. It's once again, I think I'm 50 is long enough to have some gravitas when you talk about something. Right, 50 is long enough when it's like there are a couple things that I'm really good at. I try to keep my opinions to myself for a lot of things, unless it's joking, but really for real, I am an authority. I feel as if I am an authority on martial arts, and I feel like I'm an authority on transportation asset management, right? Which is the thing I do for work, and a couple other very minor things, right? But everything else, I try to keep that opinion crap in check, right? But the other thing about being 50 is that there is 30 years or 50 years of life experience that I can pull from. And so when I'm talking to my daughter about something, I say, oh, by the way, right, this is probably what's going to happen next in your social circle or whatever, because I've seen it and I've been there. And that's something, that's something. It's not small. And when you're hanging out with friends that you've had since college, well, that's 30 years of walking together. Right. And so when I can express something to a buddy of mine by just giving him a look, and he's reading 7 or 8 stories out of that look. Right. And that is not small either, man. That is not small. So
I think
do you guys just stick to D&D, or have you tried other games? Did you dabble around with the Kings of War role-playing game when the demo was out, or was it just D&D?
No, stop it. No, we did not do the Kings of War. No, we didn't do that. Stop. But what we did do is we played the Star Wars role-playing game, which is fantastic. We did a lot of Call of Cthulhu one-shots. I just picked up a game called Vizen that I want to try. It's about essentially you are supernatural hunters and investigators during the turn of the century, right, 1850 to 1890. And that has a really rich background that I think I want to try, and it looks like the story is good. We played a little Shadowrun, did a Shadowrun campaign. We've dabbled in other stuff. The Warhammer role-playing game is so good. It's so good. And do not get in fights in that game, because you will lose an arm, right? Like that is one of those games where you can't just go and murder hobo your way through the street, man. Because there are real consequences for just in employing violence, which I actually like. if everything is just a combat sim that's poorly done, then there's no character there. But
Clem, I thought you were going to say something.
No, I'm just digesting this. I'm a bit jealous, I have to say, Mike, because that sounds really lovely.
It's so rare.
Very jealous. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. It's funny. I was talking to John Vanaz about it once, and I just throwing it around like, oh yeah, blah 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 blah, 17, 20 years, and he was like, dude, you don't even know what you got, like, because John had just moved, and then he moved again, and he's like, I don't have anybody right now. I got to go find another group, right? I got to go reestablish myself again, right? And that's hard, right? That's hard. It's hard insofar as to find people that you're really compatible with and having to start all over again. As you get older, it's a lot of work, right? Because people get more set in their ways, and it's like they take me or leave me, But I do have to say that one of the things that I've said this on other podcasts at other times, but the fact that I have these hobbies and these interests, I worked out at Rochester, New York, which is an hour, 4 hours away from where I live here in Albany, New York. And I worked there over the course of 18 months when I was much younger, and I was working as an engineering consultant. And I would essentially go out there on Monday morning at 5 a.m. and I would come back Friday night at 11 p.m. Right. And then I would have the weekends here and I would go back out there for the job I was working on. And once I knew that was not going to be a couple weeks and it turned into a couple months, which turned into a year, I was like, all right, first thing I got to do is I got to find a game store. The second thing I need to do is find a dojo so that I can not spend 5 nights a week in the microtel. We're not doing that, and I ended up having like a life out there where I had like a steady gaming group where we were doing some Warhammers and D&D. I was going to the dojo out there twice a week. And, I wasn't testing for belts or anything, but I was training. And then like, hey, you want to hang out after? Yeah, of course I want to hang out after. I ain't doing anything. Let's go out for a beer or something. And the community, the hobby gives you access to a community of people that are interested in something that you are interested to. And therefore you have something to talk about. Right. I can't walk up to somebody in the grocery store who I don't know and go, you look cool. Do you want to talk about and get to know me? It's like, no, bro, get away. I'm buying cantaloupe. Hit the bricks. Right. So, but this actually gives you an opportunity to let's go and make friends. Right. It's a way to break down the first set of awkward barriers and get to the second and third awkward barrier. Right. And that's important.
I think it also works to ignore or set aside some differences, because otherwise it's quite easy to hang out with people that are very much similar to yourself.
Agreed.
Right? Because otherwise you just disagree with them or just don't take them seriously to begin with, and you miss out on a lot of stuff this way. So I think, focusing more on we have this in common, and therefore at least we can spend good time focusing on this, and maybe some other things we might disagree or have a different opinion on it or whatever it is. But it doesn't take 100% compatibility to have a good time within a gaming group or within a hobby group or something like this. So, right. I think it works both ways is what I wanted to say.
It's true. It's totally true. Right? Totally true. Any other thoughts before I got to run?
I think my only thought is kind of unrelated. Is Steve? I think you've reached the record of how much time we spent before going to Mantic News. So congratulations!
Sorry, guys.
You've done it. You've done it.
Right. Sorry,
longest introduction in podcast history. No, it's been great.
Such a fascinating guy. Honestly, I could listen to him talk for hours. I do listen to him talk for hours and hours on Unplugged Radio. Just, and blokes like Mike already knows, I've already told him that I'm just such a massive fan of his, and I'm so excited for his book coming out and stuff. And trying not to be weird when I meet you, man. I just think what a he's got this fantastic. If you want to do an audiobook of your book, man, that would be amazing, because I think you've got this. He's just got a good voice, right? I don't know what accent that is because I'm not good at American accents, but. Yeah, what a fascinating kind of journey you've been on, really, to come to authorhood through kind of a really difficult time as well. To kind of, but the thought of another book coming out is really cool. The question I was coming to, by the way, about before we got to the D&D thing, which totally sidetracked me and made me lose my mind, was do you get time to play Kings of War at all? Because you have all this stuff in your life. But you went 4-1, right. So you won 4 games out of 5 in a row at a tournament just this last weekend. Do you ever play Kings? Is that that's it? You just turn up with dwarves and win?
No. Well, okay. So there's I usually get in a game a month. 1 game a month. Usually it's against Corey or Harry or one of the other guys over in my gaming club called the Shambling Horde, and so once a month I'll get a game in, maybe 2 in a day, and that's it. And then, but the reason why, I mean, if you want to, it's the number of reps I've had with this one army with dwarves is a lot, right? If the only thing you're doing is running the same thing over and over again, and little tweaks and stuff like that, I've stress tested the army enough to know when it's going to break and what it can handle and what it can't, right? So I don't get a lot of practice, but all of my practice is in this one thing. Bruce Lee had, I think one of the quotes that is attributed to him is, "I'm not scared of the guy that knows 1,000 kicks. I'm scared of the guy that practiced one kick 1,000 times." Right. And so, I'm the one kick wonder when it comes to play,
The one kick wonder, and it's dwarves. Do you ever want to play anything else? Are you interested in playing any other armies?
Yeah. So what I'll do is normally I go to 4 events a year, and one of those events I will borrow an army from somebody else, and I will play that army at the event. And I know I'm going to do poorly, and I don't care. Right. And just to get a feel for something else over the course of 5 games of the week. And usually by the time like Sunday morning rolls around, I get a feel for what I should have been doing on Saturday. Right. Is usually how it works. Right.
Story of my life.
Yeah, right. I borrow an army every time I go to Lone Wolf. Every time I play a different one, it's just one that I show up and somebody gives me. So
yeah, well, good. Listen, it's nice having friends everywhere, Mark. I mean, it's super awesome, great.
Yeah, absolutely.
I got people. I told them they should, and next thing you know, they did. So that's good.
There's a guy.
Well, I wish it worked that way, Mike. So
there's a guy here who's just completed he's done 29 tournaments over the last 2 years, and he's just completed his 29th army playing in them. So he played a different army in every single tournament.
I cannot imagine doing 15 tournaments in a year, right? So 29 tournaments over the course of 2 years. I cannot imagine doing 15. He does some quick math. That is more than one a month. I'm an engineer. It's more than one a month. What is going on?
That might not be right. Maybe it's 3 years. I'm gonna have to ask Steve Evans. Is the guy? Lazy Pirate Painting. He does do a lot of tournaments, to be fair, and we have a lot of small one-day tournaments here in the UK.
Okay.
So it's not going to be.
And the drive time is different too. Yeah. So, but still.
No, actually, more than one a month makes sense. There are. I mean, in the UK, there's tournament every single weekend. Without fail, there's a tournament every weekend. So it's totally doable. Maybe it was more than one a month. Steve, let us know, because he will. I think Steve's a listener. If he's not, I'll tell him to listen. He's a good guy.
Yeah, he does. And the scary thing is he painted all the armies too.
Yeah, they're his armies.
Yes.
Yeah. See, that's the joy of being a professional painter, right?
He's crazy.
He's got the time and the ability, the muscle memory to be able to sit down and just, I painted a mini. Oh, look, I did another.
I'm sure it's like learning languages. The first 3 are difficult, and then after number 4, 5, 6, it gets quite easy. I've heard. I
saw this conversation,
right? But I think the thing that really, when I was painting, I mean, I used to paint a lot, to be honest, before right through until Ellie turned about 2, my daughter, and I would paint an army a year. And so, you go to do Undead, and the first couple skeletons come out like googly eyes, but by about the 20th of them, you're like, okay, now I got it. And then you got the baseball game on, you got your daughter in your lap, and there you go. I just painted another one, right? Because now it's muscle memory. You've created the myelinations in your brain, and your hand is just doing the thing, right? I used to be able to paint a dwarf in an hour and a half, front to back, done, right? Because I had painted so many. Not that they were amazing, but they were better than tabletop standard at the time, and I was like super happy with it, and I didn't have to think too much about it. I sit down now to paint stuff, and one, my eyes are bad because I'm old. I got this little tremor in my hand now, right? The joy of being 50, and so nothing really lines up anymore, right? And so I try to paint every once in a while because I got to get like 2 or 3 minis done for the next tournament that I'm doing, and it really is kind of a struggle. So I've gotten used to like painting much bigger minis. Right? I'd rather paint things that are way bigger. Like, I want to do another 75 mil base monster because there's a lot of place to, put the paint down and not worry about eyes,
That's a strategy.
Yeah. Are they just all ravens? Just raven after raven after raven after raven.
They should be. They should be. They totally should be. They are so good. And the minis are so good. Like, yes, thank you, Mantic, for doing something well, right? For killing it. I mean, killing it on this one. Right. So
anyway,
the new minis have been good coming out of Mantic. So
legit.
Mike, we really appreciate you taking so much of your time to talk to us.
And thank you for giving me so much time on your podcast. I feel like I hogged the entire thing. This is awful. Right?
That's what being a guest is all about, buddy.
Yeah.
There it is. So next we're going to do the Mantic news. Things are happening.
This is Fred reminding you to visit the Kings of War forum, kowforum.com. No ads, no commercials. That's kowforum.com.
And now it's time for the Mantic news.
Mantic news. What's been happening in the world of Mantic, Clem?
Let me read the notes. I think we said we wanted to do a shout out to Tales from the Warriors Hall podcast. Didn't we do that last time already? And that's a leftover from the previous notes.
Possibly.
We did.
Shout them out again.
Yeah, shout them out again. I think we messed it up last time, so they get a redo. So.
Right,
nice.
That's what happened. Yeah, I think a few new podcasts have started lately as well. What's the name? There's also one for Warpath for Firefight. So that's another one that we'll get the second do next episode because we're completely messing it up.
I think it's down later in the notes. It's something about. Oh no, these notes have changed. So professional.
That would be too easy, Steve, if the notes could be helpful. No, so all I wanted to say is I'm very happy to see new people use their voice and come up with various podcasts. That's very cool to listen to and very healthy as a community. So Mantic news is there is more and more fan-made content, and that's huge.
There is. And there's also...
Mantic also shouted it out in their Andy shouted it out in the Mantic update for this month. So there's a nice little graphic there, and it's got the podcast logos laid out for you. So I encourage you to go to YouTube and give that a watch.
Yeah, man, his Andy's stuff he's been pushing out has been really good. I think he's consistent, quality's high, he's got a great voice, good to listen to, so that's good stuff. Other stuff, so Riverhorse Games have officially been acquired by Mantic Games. So Alessio Galvadori is now once again officially part of the Mantic. Does that mean, did they get him? Or they just bought his IP? Do we know?
Who knows? We don't know.
No, I can say a little bit. So they are getting all the IP and all the games and stuff. And Alessio is going to be working for Mantic doing game design. I don't know if it's full-time or part-time, but there is going to be Alessio over there. They were talking about Worms and all the other games that he's been involved with. So I think we're going to see some more board games coming out of Mantic.
He's doing Warpath. When I was in Mantic not too long ago, I wandered down a corridor and I looked through, and I'd never met Alessio Calvatori, and I didn't really know what he looked like, but he was in the room with Matt Gilbert, and Matt Gilbert looked up, saw me, looked annoyed, and slammed the door. So I think maybe it was not out of the bag at that point. I don't know. Maybe I might be imagining
doing reporter work, like on the front line, collecting the info at the source. That's you, Steve.
That's me. Annoying people in the front line. That's what we do. So that's good. It's good. Let's go see what comes out of that and see if anything. So Labyrinth was one of their games, wasn't it? Riverhorse, and that's being re-released. The Labyrinth game anniversary edition. From the film,
40th anniversary edition. So that should be the first Mantic release of the Riverhorse products, I think. So, and the interesting thing is Mantic now owns My Little Pony. So all those My Little Pony armies are now legitimate.
The argument is finally over. This is now official IP. Oh man, awesome. Mantic Vault. What happened in the Mantic Vault this month, Clem? You're a subscriber?
I am, of course. Yes. We have a picture to help remember what happened. That looks like Abyssal Dwarf ships, like some Armada. There's also a Dead Zone custom team. I haven't tried them out yet, but the idea is pretty cool. Like to have a, set in stone. This is the list you're gonna play. Like those are the 200 points. And then there are special rules and special abilities and special stuff. That's pretty nice. We have some Richford orcs the big guys. Steve, you know them, right?
Thunderseers. Yeah.
Thunderseers.
Well, those are
That's how
Thunderseers, which was what was missing from the vault. Really, they are damn expensive, and I bought lots of those. So those. Oh no, I didn't. I can't.
I bought some too, Steve. So I just got done painting up a unit of them for my 500-point list. So yeah, but that's okay. They'll be there. So
those are good minis. I like those minis.
Yeah, they're there for next time. And then the how is it called? The big monster, the slasher?
Yeah.
All
the wing
slashers.
slashers. The wing slashers are the full models, and then the other ones are just the upgrades. So I don't know if you can just buy a slasher model separately.
It's not the whole thing. It's not the whole thing.
I think they are the whole thing, all of them.
Is it? Yeah,
I haven't tried yet.
That's what they said on the video. So it. By Andy. So we'll have to try it out. I have not tried it out yet, even though I could do it right now while we're here
I'm
talking.
literally doing it as we're talking. So let's see. Riftforge, so the Orc, Quadron, Wing Slasher, it just says Goblin Slasher upgrades. It is just the upgrades. Yeah.
Yeah, it says upgrades. I'm gonna take a look at it, but I know the Wing Slasher is supposed to be the whole model. So, and then we got, from what I call filler, more terrain. So I'll let you opine on that, Clem.
Yeah, it's dead zone scatter pieces. I think I like the idea in general. I wish there was a bit. It was a bit more of a focused theme, like that they had a bit more homogeneity, or that they would tell a bit more of a story or something. I don't know. Like it's cool to have them, but I think they could do something, more focused, or like base toppers, or what is the one piece of terrain that you want to have on every single table almost, that type of stuff. So, I mean, some of these, like the barricade, I guess could be in that category. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm just way behind, and I have PTSD with doing my dead zone terrain anyway, so maybe that's why.
Possibly.
Well, I did take a quick look, and it looks like the slasher is there. So he's just separate. So that's interesting. That's what it looks like. It says Goblin Slasher unsupported. So, and then it's got the troopers and the bolt thrower parts and stuff. So it's possible. Yeah, it looks like it's broken up into like a whole bunch of pieces. So front leg, left leg, back cover. Well, then there's bolt thrower and stuff. So quiver, seated goblin body, slasher body. So it looks like it's there. So that's very, very cool.
That would make sense.
Anyway.
Yeah. Now I'm even more excited.
It's another good month.
What's that?
It's another good month. Gotta say.
Oh, I think so. Definitely. And one of the videos, they tipped their hand too on these squads that you're getting for Dead Zone. And one of the big reveals is that they want to have people download the STLs like they do in Armada, and they made the rules available on the companion to everybody so that people can try out Dead Zone if you're just a digital subscriber. So very interesting.
I think it's a smart point of entry into the game. Yeah, I like it. I want to say I have one complaint about June Vault, is that the Night Stalker stuff is not in there. So I guess we will see some in July, and I'm very much looking forward to it. It's just that I was very eager to see the Sci Fi Night Stalker.
Do you think they'll put them in the vault, or do you think they'll get you to try and buy them?
I'm not sure. One way or another, I'm happy if I can get the STLs and then do whatever I want with them. I don't mind. I don't mind spending some more money to, buy specific pieces that I want now, and not wait another 6 months to get them in the vault. So I don't mind.
Yeah, well, maybe it'll follow the same pattern as the Abyssal Dwarfs. Like, I bought the fleets at Adepticon. Now, granted, they were selling them cheap, but, because originally they said they were going to go straight to the vault, and then they didn't go straight to the vault. So then I ended up buying some, and then now here they are in the vault a couple months later. So maybe they'll follow that same pattern. They'll go through the retail spin, and as soon as they don't want to make any more resin castings of them, or it's become a pain in the butt, they'll throw them in the vault. So
Oh, I thought you wanted to say once I buy them in resin, they do STRs. So I wanted to ask Mark, have you bought some Night Stalker, Sci-Fi Night Stalker, so that they can go on the vault now?
Well, they are up for pre-order though, so
they are for a pre-order already. Yes.
Yeah.
Which is very cool. And then I'm going to take the next part because I'm going to Origins. Hooray! So, yeah, about 10 days until Origins. And believe it or not, we've been asking for Mantic to get a booth, and they finally got a booth. So, very, very excited. So, booth 2304, they have it in the main gaming hall. And I wish the two of you could come because Origins is a blast. Mike Carter, the Pathfinder extraordinaire, and the Ohio War Kings get together. That's my club, and they run a bunch of Mantic events. So lots of learn to plays and everything else. And people would finish them and go, so where do I go to buy the models? And we go, So this year we can say right over there, booth 2304. So we're very excited about it. I hope they do well and they sell stuff there. So, but if you will be in Columbus, Ohio, what is it, June 19th to the 23rd, I think, please stop by, say hi, and stuff like that. Blake's going to be running the booth, I believe. That's 2304. And, we'd love to see your face in the place.
So are you going to play some demos, or what's your agenda like for the...
Oh, yeah. No, I've got a lot of time in the Ohio War Kings booth planned, so I'll be there. I am actually doing the Learn to Play for every game. So we're going to be doing a Firefight, Armada, Kings of War, and Dead Zone. I also signed up for the Saturday night How You Play It Ambush tournament. So we'll see how that goes. And last year I came in last. And so this year we'll see how we do.
Keeping your strong record going. Incredible.
Absolutely. Well, see, that's why I was joking around online. I got to move to the UK so I can get a big collection of wooden spoons from Bob. So
yeah, they're so good. They are so good. Ronnie's released a mid-year update, guys. I have a confession. I haven't watched it. I haven't watched it because I just assumed it was going to be all about the summer of sci-fi, and I'm like, I don't like sci-fi. And I haven't watched it because I've been feeling very grumpy recently. Should I watch it? It's got. I've seen what happens in it.
Well. Did you watch it, Clem?
I want to make a confession. What I really wanted was to see some Forces of the Abyss. And so at one point I skimmed through the whole video to see, are there any renders or any art? There were none. I was like, nah, not interested. Mark, save us from our...
I will do that. So, yeah, but it's always good to hear from Ronnie. So, but they did a little look at the past and a little look forward. So, of course, they put out The Walking Dead. So they talked about that a little bit. And then they mentioned that Ronnie's car was stolen. Does anybody know that story? I thought that was kind of a toss in on there. So I guess that's a quest, dear listener, to find out what's going on with that. So I thought that was interesting.
Whoever's got his hats has now moved up to cars.
Yeah, there you go. Grand Theft Auto. So
it's very Nottingham, to be fair.
So and then they talked about Dungeon Saga Origins coming out, and then of course the new Goblin Adventure is now available. So they talked about that, and then of course they talked about Frogs on Frogs. So far, I've been able to resist. So I'm hoping that a 2-player set is coming out with the Abyss and the Frogs later on this year. So I'm crossing my fingers and holding out. Then they also mentioned Halo is sold out at Mantic. So if you were a Halo guy, or, I don't know if Steve is going to jump in on Halo or not, you need to go to a retailer now to get it. Mantic is sold out of their personal allotment. So.
Yeah, I was chatting to Kyle briefly because he was coming to the UK. He's in the UK right now, getting drunk with Nick Williams. But I wasn't able to go and see him, unfortunately. But he says he sold 3 times what he'd normally sell, and it's all Halo. He's sold like an enormous amount. My friend Rich, who's also been playing Dungeon Saga Origins, he's been playing through the solo campaign. He says it's pretty good. He's a Pathfinder for Mantic. He's getting a Halo kit, and he's going to paint it up, and we're threatening to maybe do some videos with it. I don't know. I would like to play it. My enthusiasm for Halo waned a little bit when I found out it's just the PvP stuff. I was kind of stoked about it being like the Halo story, when you could play against the Flood or play against, the different factions, and that might be really fun. But it is literally just it's the PvP, right? And you respawn.
It's a training ground.
Yeah,
it's a training ground.
Yeah. I think the rest of that's coming. So I think that you're going to be seeing this expand. That's what they were talking about at Adepticon. So I think this is just getting people interested. If it sells well, you'll see it continue to bulk out, I believe. So, and I didn't play Halo. I've got zero interest in it at all because I'm not a Halo guy. But everybody was talking about, oh, we're going to get this guy and that guy and the Flood, and we're going to do this, and so it sounded very interesting. It sounds like they got a great plan. So this hopefully will put Mantic on the map, and people will understand what Mantic is and see the other games. So
we shall see. I've been seeing a lot of Kings of War players starting, new Kings of War players coming from what's it called, War Machine. A lot of War Machine players locally here in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, tons of them. I think War Machine has just been on a...
well, they just got sold to Steamforge Games. Privateer Press unloaded the whole thing. It all went to Steamforge, so yeah. That's big news in the industry, too.
I've got a friend that works for them. Really good sculptor. Sculpts a lot of the Mantic stuff. And he made an amazing halfling army for Kings of War. Where I've seen it online. He did Russ Charles is his name. He did the Gordon Ramsay or Rawdon Gamzee is halfling marauders, and he sculpted a miniature halfling Gordon Ramsay at the front of it.
No kidding! You know Russ Charles?
Yeah, he's.
You're kidding me! He did a couple of the Kickstarters that we did for the kids with the dog and the cat D&D adventures. My kids played that when they were in school.
Lovely bloke. He's about 30 minutes from me. I'm going to go over and play him at some time. He's a really great guy. Yeah.
Oh, he's a terrific guy. So I don't know him. I've never met him personally, but I've talked to him, via chats and stuff like that. So very nice guy. Oh, I'm impressed, Steve. Look at you.
Well, I didn't do anything. He just turned up. And there was better than everyone at painting. We were like, oh, okay. Don't know how good is he at the game, but I guess we'll find out pretty soon. Yeah. So there's that. Anyway, we are pushed for time, as ever, my friends.
So I will just say that the bulk of the video was going into the summer of sci-fi. So let's move into our Warpath firefight and Dead Zone with the latest news. Take it away, Clem.
We don't have to.
Yeah, very quickly. So before we jump into the actual summer of sci-fi, I can tell you about the winter of sci-fi. So Epic Warpath. There is now a rules committee, and playtesting is still going on. So, and they both left. So I can talk shit about both of you guys. So Epic Warpath is they've been kind of silent since the last Kickstarter update, but stuff is going on in the background to make it a really good game, and it's going to be a really good game. Summer of Sci-Fi, well, it's Night Stalkers, basically. I think that's the main info. Steve, have you looked at masonlabs.com?
Oh, I have. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a really, really well made, very cool, characterful. I didn't understand any of it. But, you could log in with your Mantic Vault login or your companion login, right? To get these and then they released the info through Messenger. I thought it was a really clever, nice, story-led way of pulling people in. I really enjoyed that. So I thought that was really clever.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was quite an elaborate way to, introduce the new fluff and new story points for the Night Stalkers. I also enjoyed it. Mark, did you find also the secret password? Did you do all of the quests on the masonlabs.com?
I really wanted to. I got started. I thought it was kind of cutesy. If you follow the rules, you're not going anywhere. You got to, violate the one rule they give you. And I started reading that. It was on my phone. It was janking up. And I'm like, and I just have never had time to get through it. So, but I did start it, and it was kind of cool. I got the secret message from the guy in the beginning, and that's as far as I got. So, so what's the fine prize that you get at the end? I guess do you just get pictures of the models we've already seen, or what?
Pretty much. I think those were the first time they've shown the pictures before they released them like on the website. Like on their website, it was in secret, attachments to your employee account on MasonLabs.com. So it was just to save a few days to see the pictures slightly sooner. But yeah, I thought it was pretty well done.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, I wish I had more time to goof around with it. So, but yeah, it was very, very cool.
I wonder how many people went through and followed through with the whole thing. I kind of looked at it and thought it was cool, and then didn't go back because it's Dead Zone. I don't understand. But I saw the Dead Zone. So when UK Masters, the Masters competition for the UK was run. It was run at Mantic headquarters, and the TO room was the photographer's little room. And there's a cabinet in the corner with all the upcoming minis that he'd been photographing in there. And I was like, oh, look, there's Night Stalkers in there. What's that flying thing? And then we worked out, these must be dead. Either they're new Night Stalker models or they're for Dead Zone, right? So we did see them. Whatever.
Well, the small ones, maybe.
It's all the same to Steve.
All the same.
It's all the same. The Warpath universe. But I saw them back in, it must be January, February time. And I thought they looked cool then. But what a great secret keeper I am that I've told barely a handful of everyone. So, and no one knows. So I clearly don't have any friends, A. And B, no one I told was interested. So, no, I only mentioned it to one guy and he was like, oh, cool. So, yeah, seems fun. You didn't like the paint scheme though, right, Clem?
I think Chris is the one who hated it the most. Yeah. I'm not the biggest fan of it for some reason. I think like 10 in red or whatever it is not the most nightmarish creature evocating color scheme. The greenish flames are cool. But I don't know. I think it also is a bit harder to read some of the organic creatures, like the new creatures. I think it'll be much better once I have them in my hands to really understand how cool the miniatures are. Because for now it's a bit of a pile of stuff, and it's a bit hard to see what they are. But we do have rules for them also on the companion, and from what I've seen so far, it's pretty neat. I've already played around, making lists for firefights. With basically one ambush box, you can do a 500 point the Night Stalker starter army. So I think that's pretty cool. Like it's Steve for only 32 euros if you buy it at a distributor that does a price. You get a starter army already. And 16 models. It's like Mark Zielinski approved amount of models to get started with Sci Fi. So,
there you go, seal of approval.
Just saying.
Games with shooting. I just can't get excited about a war game with sci-fi. I don't know why. Like I love sci-fi novels. I love sci-fi films. I love concept of sci-fi stuff. A sci-fi war game, just like that. I'll just play a video game. I don't get it.
It's a personal thing. I mean, it's your thing. I guess. My thoughts when seeing that was I need to paint my Mason Labs, like gray and orange, like the Half-Life theme. It's kind of like a Half-Life story, right? But I'm actually happy about it. Like I like the plot. I think it brings something cool and new stories for Warpath. So it's pretty neat. And there is a new 2-player starter coming up, I believe. Did they announce what is in there? I'm not sure. Night Stalkers.
They blurred it out. So I'm hoping it's Asterians and Night Stalkers, but.
I think, wasn't it Wayland Games that already has the pre-order for it, and then you have a list of everything that's inside? I think there is. Like some stores already put up the pre-orders a few weeks before, and then you can see what's coming up. I think they did, and I already saw that, and it was pretty cool. It's definitely a starter that's come.
There's one that says Dead Zone 3.0 2-player starter set. It's already in stock, that one.
Should be a firefight pre-order. I don't know, maybe I dreamt it. No, firefight.
The show note says Dead Zone. I'm just saying, guys, I'm reading the show notes for once.
If you trust the show notes, then I don't know where we're going.
Well, there's supposed to be a Dead Zone starter coming out too, so.
Maybe there is. I just haven't found it yet.
Fight. Okay. Here we go. Price would be what? Expensive?
And £100 or something, maybe.
Sort by stock,
76 pounds. It looks like. Yeah, that's for Battle of Kabat 3, the 2-player starter set, the Orcs and the Enforcers. So, but
is that the one that's already out?
Yes.
That's already out. No, yeah, Wayland Games hasn't got it up yet. There's a Night Stalker Strike Force pre-order, and that's £64. That seems very reasonable, he says, not knowing if it is or not. Yeah, no, it's not there yet. Well, let's keep our eyes peeled. What's next?
I just found it, Steve.
Oh, sorry.
I just found it. So it
is
is there. Firefight Edge of Sanity 2-player set, £89.46.
And who's in it?
Sanity.
20 marionettes, 4 support drones, 6 ciphers, 6 Matsudan, 20 scarecrows inspectors, 10 reapers, 6 butchers, 1 shade, 1 cipher prime. Very good starter sets.
There you go. See, I was right. Night Stalkers and Asterians. Yeah. That's it. That's perfect.
Wow, there you go. I was fooled because it didn't have the logo of the box, just has the word Mantic. There you go.
Yeah, because they don't have the images yet, I guess, because it's
right
advanced. Anyway, so that's kind of the sneaky. You can see some of the things that's coming up for the summer of sci-fi, and it's going to be pretty cool. There's already some new players locally that are interested, so yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. So yeah, do we have anything else for sci-fi? Not so much. I think the last one. We started discussing off the record, doing another fast map sort of, or like how do you even get started with Firefight? And one of the things that we thought about is what lists can you even make with a strike force? So I encourage everyone who knows the game already to come up with lists with all the strike forces and make them public, so that new players can have a look at potential lists they could use with just buying one box. So I've already made a few of them, probably not great lists, but functional lists. And I think that's a good way to get started with Firefight. Just get a strike force or get a 2-player starter set, and you basically already have 750 points for the strike forces, like most of them that I've looked at. And the 2-player starter sets are also a good amount of miniatures and a reasonable starting point. So yeah, pretty exciting stuff, I think. And with that, Steve, we are done with sci-fi, and we can move on to Kings of War.
This is Andy from Mantic Games, and you're listening to the Mantic Universe podcast. So much universe, so little time.
All right, well, Mark's had to pop off, so we're down to the fearsome twosome, me and Clem, to finish off.
Let's do this. So, Kings of War, what have you been up to? How many tournaments have you organized in the past months?
just the one. Still just organizing Clash of Kings. So I am through this. Just a small little Clash of Kings, small tournament play. So I am in the process of gluing together goodie bag things to for people to play with, which sounds nice. Here's the thing. I'll show Clem. You can't see it, dear listener, but it's one of those.
Ooh, wow!
Yeah, that's the right noise to make there. Oh, let me show you something. Let's show you. Oh, hang on, that one's fallen off now. Let me show you this. You can make the appropriate noise for this as well, Clem.
Ooh, that is very cool. That's kind of cruel though, because you can't buy a ticket for Clash of King anymore. So.
Well, I'm glad you said that. So there will be a resale. So the last day for refunds is the end of June. After that, there will be a short window to buy refunded tickets. There'll be about 10, 15 tickets that go on sale then, and then we're done. That's the final time people can buy tickets if you do want to come to Clash of Kings. So that's happening. So I've been playing a lot of Kings of War. I'm really into it at the minute. I've been playing my Kingdoms of Men. I've been making a lot of YouTube content for my YouTube channel, which is Death by Dragons. Please feel free to subscribe. Weirdly, since I started making more content, I've had people unsubscribe, which is always really, I know, it's always really encouraging to go into your dashboard and it's like, you have -4 subscribers.
That's great. It means you're making great polarizing content, like You're not a sellout, Steve. That's great.
Really annoying somebody. So that was really encouraging. So I've been playing a few tournaments and I've been doing okay. I came third at a tournament recently, and local tournament here, which is about 30 players. And then last weekend I came fifth in a 4-game tournament, but it's the same points as third, but I had less kills, so I ended up fifth. The 3 of us that came to the same amount of points. So it's going pretty well. Kings of War wise, I'm really enjoying my Kingdoms of Men.
Wait, you always take your Kingdoms of Men when you go to tournaments, or
this year I've committed to one army. So last year I played like 6-7 armies and I kind of sucked at all of them. And then so this year I was like, I'm just going to play one. That was my gaming New Year resolution, was just play one army at tournaments all year. And so I chose Kingdoms of Men because I thought they were kind of a less played army, and because I'm a special flower, I wanted to make an all Mantic Kingdoms of Men. So they're all Basileans, Northern Alliance.
You like a good challenge, don't you?
Yeah, man, it's a bit of a hobby challenge. And so my beast cavalry are Dracons printed off the vault and stuff like that, with some different heads and things. So it looks pretty nice, and I'm really proud of it. And yeah, it's going pretty well. So I did make the mistake at this recent tournament. So Chris Lynch was there. Chris Lynch is I don't know if you know him. He's former UK master, former UK number 1. Exceptionally good player, and he always puts a thing out saying, "Oh, I want to play someone I haven't played before. Any new players want to play me?" And I always think he just wants an easy first game. But I was starting to have like anxiety dreams about meeting him in game 3 or 4, and then just because I cannot beat him. He's exceptionally good, and I know my place, Clem. I don't know about you, but I know my place, and it's mid-table.
Middle of the table, yes.
Mid-table warriors. So I was like, Chris, I'll play you. Let's get it out of the way so I don't worry about it anymore. And you can have hopefully a challenging game. So I played him game 1, and he of course wiped the floor with me, as he is wont to. But then I won the next 3 games, so it went pretty well. So yeah, submarined it off that. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's a good way. Like, that's textbook submarine right there. Also, you learn a lesson, evacuate the anxiety. That sounds like a tournament professional.
That's the positive. I didn't do it for quite that cynical reason, though. I could seem that way. But yeah, I think it was also, he was playing a very shooty halfling list, and I was playing a very melee focused Kingdoms of Men list, which is quite slow. So the match, I had a dream. This is how much anxiety I had. I had a dream where Tom Robinson was telling me how to beat Chris's list. And I woke up before he could tell me. So I messaged Tom to say, look, I had this dream where you were telling me how to beat Chris. Can you tell me?
I woke up too early. Please tell me how it ends.
And he was like, you're weird, but let me look at the lists. And so I sent them to him, and his only comment was, oh, yeah, that is a tough matchup. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks for the expertise. I couldn't see that myself.
Yeah.
Sounds like an interesting experience nonetheless. Yeah, I went to GT in Warsaw a few weeks back, 2 weeks ago.
Oh, wow. Oh, yeah, I saw. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, it was very nice. Not so many players, ultimately, but very good ones, I would say.
Yeah.
And also very nice people. So that was good. Warsaw is like 5 hours away from me by train, so it's not that crazy. It's not that much of an investment to go and play with a different community and so on. So it was interesting. The only thing is, I do one army per year, and this year is the Goblin army. That is supposed to be the non-competitive. Just I love squigs, and so there's no flea bags, or no mop-ups. It's only squigs instead. But the list is kind of like I have 0 shooting in my goblins army, so that should tell you something.
Melee goblins.
Yeah, and it's not as bad as it sounds. So that's why I ended up making the army after all. Like, it actually can do some things, but it's also not a competitive list. And I kind of had the impression already that the Warsaw people, they play relatively regularly. Like, they do 1 tournament per month. And I thought, oh, okay. I mean, I'll go and maybe I'll win a game, and that'll be it, and still be fun. And I ended up winning 2 games, so I think that's more than mission accomplished. And but yeah, otherwise I played very, very interesting games, and it's always good for me to travel a little bit, because sadly Germany is not like the UK where there's an event every weekend. And so whenever there is an event that I can go to without spending 3 nights in an hotel, it's an occasion that I try to not miss, except for the Hamburg people. Like, it's 1 hour and a half away from me, and every single time their events is, conflicting with something in my agenda. But otherwise, yeah, I try to go to all of the, let's say, local events within a few hours. So yeah, you guys don't know how good you have it.
Oh no, we know. I'm fully aware of how good we have it, and I'm very, very grateful. It's boom time. I think it's. I'm hoping it's just a peak on the way to more peaks, but it does feel like Kings of War is really rocking and raving. Yeah, definitely, for sure. We've even got a new gaming. I'm so excited, Clem. I could not tell you how excited I am. I live in Britain's second biggest city, which is a very small city, but it's the second biggest, and we have no game stores beyond. There is one like 25. It's the other side of town. It's in the next door town called Dudley, which is fine, but it's in an industrial estate, and the toilet is barely hygienic. It's really grim, and that's the closest gaming store. Apart from that, there's an hour and a half drive away, which for Americans isn't far, but for here is a very, very long way. Anyway, right in the center of Birmingham, there is a new Element Games opening, which is a big chain store. There's one up in Stockport, there's one in Nottingham, there's one somewhere else, and they're opening one in Birmingham. And my friend Dave is going to be the store manager, and so he's a big Kings of War fan. He ran the tournament I came third at, so I'm super excited that he's opening a new store. I don't think it's going to be many gaming tables. He thinks like 4 to 6, but he's going to be.
That's already a good start. Yeah, that's already a good. Just to have a presence and some place where you can meet up and play some games and have some, exposure to potential new players. That's very important. Yeah, that's cool. That's
just a place to be based. He's going to have a Kings of War night, and I just can't wait to support that fully and to just be there and to play and to have a hub, right? Somewhere to buy my paint that isn't like eBay would be awesome. So yeah, that's really
sounds like exciting times. And yeah, I agree. I mean, we also see more Kings of War players here in Germany. Definitely, it's just we haven't caught up yet to the number of events. And so my impression is that people still these days tend to play within the same, playing gaming group. And it's fun and all, but to really have a game that is doing the best it can, you have to have events where people, kind of move around a little bit within a couple of hours. Maybe, when you go for a Saturday or Sunday event, you can drive 1 or 2 hours, right? Like, it's not so crazy.
Yeah.
Or you can plan it in. Of course, if it's to go play on a Thursday night, you can't drive an hour and a half, or unless you're an American, I guess, maybe, but no one around here would do it, so that will not work. But yeah, no, exciting time.
Within an hour is fine, right? So I try to go down to, there's a town nearby called Gloucester, which has a little shop that has a Wednesday night Kings of War night, and I do try to go to that every now and then. I wouldn't go every week, like you say, because it's just a different way of life here. We just have it a bit more. We like it cushy, don't we? Cushy and comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, why drive if you can avoid it, right? Or why spend time in transit if you can avoid it? That's a good way to go.
Anyway, well, let's read out Mark. Mark did write some updates. He says he's finishing up a 500-point herd army for Colin. Oh yeah, this is crazy. So Mark's got a little A1 Mini FDM printer, a plastic printer. And rather than what everyone else does, using their PLA printer to print off terrain, he prints minis on it because he's got it so tuned in. He can print pretty nice minis. And so he's doing a herd army on his FDM printer. It looks all right. I've seen it. It's totally manageable. Like, it's a tabletop army for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it can work for that purpose. All those printers have made tremendous progress in the past few years. Like, they've improved a lot. Like, even out of the box now, they basically print very decent things already. And if you read a bit about it online and fine tune it even further, you can reach really good results. I think the main reason is that it does not want to get involved with resin printing. So you stick to what you can do. But yeah.
He's got one. He just doesn't want to go through the faff of setting it up with the fumes and the extractions because he's in his basement, right? He needs a good air. You don't want to be just breathing those fumes. Mine's in my garage, so it's doable. But
yeah, I understand. Mine is also in my garage, but even that is a pain. Like I don't have it running all the time. It's just whenever I accumulate enough stuff to print, then I go through the pain of starting it up again, and then I batch print for a while, and then turn it off and put it away again. But yeah.
My PLA printer has died again for the 17th time in a row, and I'm done with it. I just went to my wife and said, my birthday's coming up. I'm like, can I have a new one? And then she's like, fine. And then I couldn't. I've been looking at options. If anyone's got any recommendations for a PLA printer, like a modern one that's fast with a decent print size on the bed, like the A1 Mini that Mark uses, is very reasonably priced, but it's too small. I do terrain on mine, so I need big.
I bought one for work recently. Well, not me, my colleague, because I have a colleague who's a lot into 3D printing, like FDM printing. I think it's the Creality something, and it's a medium-sized machine. I would say mid-range price-wise, like 700 euros, like not like the 2,000 euros, but it's a good printer,
That's a lot. I gotta say, that's a lot for a PLA printer. These days, I think 400 is a really high spec printer. £400.
Well, the thing is, we do not print PLA for work. That's why the machine can do PLA as well pretty well, but we print different materials.
Like PET-G, that kind of stuff.
Like similar to ABS. So it's ASA, so it's the UV resistant one.
Oh yeah.
It's for cases that are outside in the weather and so on, so they need to survive for a long time.
Yeah. Anyway, if any listeners have any recommendations so my FL Sudden Pro, which is a very, very old printer now, had a 30 centimeter wide bed and a 90 centimeter high height, so it would do big pieces of terrain really well.
90 centimeters high, you're kind of glutton here.
It was really high, right? So, but I've replaced pretty much every part of it now. And then the fan went inside it, and I was just like, I hate you so much now. I want something cool and new. So
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. Anyway,
what do we have next?
Mark's got some conspiracy theories about one-page rules stealing Night Stalker's IP. They've got a model called a Great Screecher for $10 for their Stalkers range.
The story of this is pretty obvious, right? Like, one-page rule, they started with the MO of we make rules for any models that you might have. And so among the factions that you can play in their fantasy universe are the Mantic unique factions. So you can play Night Stalkers. I don't even remember how they're called probably Stalkers, right?
Stalkers.
I think they had a different name at some point, but anyway, it's just like proxy, right? That was the whole business idea, and now they're making their own model, their own designs for those factions, and so obviously, like if you look at the list entries, it is the list entries of the Night Stalkers, like literally. So obviously they have to make kind of proxies for it, and the fun thing is I follow a few STL creators. And some of them also make models specifically for OPR, and therefore there are other Mantic proxies. Like if you want different variant of the Night Stalkers by different sculptors, it exists. So I guess we can say it now, Steve. Mantic is a big company when there are clones and proxies to try to make it cheaper than the big man. Like Mantic is the big man now.
I wonder if they're a big man with their 30 employees. I wonder if they're reaching for the lawyer yet. Are you reaching for the lawyer if a company makes a model that is called Stalkers and is very similar to your Night Stalkers of your original IP?
Well, I don't think so, right? I guess you just pop the champagne and say we've made it, I don't know.
You reckon? I'm not sure. Anyway.
I mean, it sounds like it's the consecration. I mean, to me, I don't think it eats any of their sales. right? So if anything, it just makes their IP stronger because that's what some people copy now. Or
do
make.
You not think it specifically eats into their sales? Because people would buy the minis instead of their minis.
I'm not so sure. Yeah, maybe, but debatable. To be honest, would I buy a huge Titan for $10 and then print it myself, or buy an actual miniature already made? I think I wouldn't print it myself, but that's just me.
Oh man, I absolutely would. I've printed a Mantic Giant rather than buy one.
Why? Why would you do that?
Because
doesn't it take forever?
Got a printer in my garage. Yeah, it took 3 days, but I didn't have to spend any money. I just had the mini, right? So
yeah, well, you spend some money on the resin, and or you spend some time doing it. I don't know. Like if it was a model that costs €100 or something, then okay, maybe my time is not worth that much. But the Mantic Giant is what, €30?
Yeah, less than that, I think.
So how many minutes do you have to work to make €30, Steve?
Oh, me? Oh, well, I think I've earned it in
a few.
This conversation just now, right? I don't know. I think I do. It's just the hobby aspect of it. It's I've chopped together bits of Storm Giant, Frost Giant, and the Mantic Giant.
Right. Fair enough.
So that makes it easy for me. Yeah.
Right. If you customize it this way, then it's completely worth it. What I'm saying is, even if Mantic provided STLs for their basic troops, I would still buy the plastic.
Yeah, plastic's better. Oh, 100%. I hate resin. Like small scale resin miniatures are a pain. They snap. They're brittle unless you use very expensive resin additives. They're just. I hate resin. Plastic is just so much better, isn't it?
It is absolutely.
Anyway, we are pushed for time, dear listener. So let's press on to
listener questions.
Listener question. We have some. We have a few listener questions. Rich from the Discord asks, how do you go about maintaining a scene? There are lots of tips for growing a scene, but how do you best keep players engaged and motivated to keep playing Kings of War? So no wandering eyes. How do you keep them interested, Clem? Do you know? I don't know.
That's a good question. I think the regularity is what pays, right? Like having, if you know, whichever Thursday night or every other Thursday or whatever, you can show up to the club or to a shop and then play games. Then I guess that's a big thing. And I'm trying to do that locally and failing. So maybe my advice isn't worth so much, right? And I guess the other thing would be you go to all of the competitors publishing new games and new miniatures, and you burn all of their inventory before it reaches the shelves.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Yeah, ultimately people are struggling for time and like how much time do I have to invest in playing games and so on. And if there's always a new game system coming out and then something new to try out and so on, then doesn't leave enough time to play good old Kings of War, or it's not as shiny as the latest whatever. So there's probably 10 to not say 100 games per slot of what people can actually play. And so it is a difficult question. I don't know. I would say maybe isn't so bad if for some period of time people play something else, right? Like there's nothing wrong with not playing as much Kings of War for some time if for whatever reason you get bored with it or you want to try something else. The question is, do you keep your army and get back to it after 6 months when there's something else that brings you back to it, or does it just die out and then everything has to be started again? That's a big question, but yeah,
So steal their car is what you're saying with the other manufacturers, so they can't release any other games.
Right? Yeah, that's a strategy. Steal their car. Yeah.
What happened to Ronnie? Do we think the competitors like one-page rules around nicked his car?
Yeah, to have like the secret drawings of the next miniatures that were about to come out, something like this. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe they sabotaged them with the color scheme for the Night Stalkers. They just wrote on the piece if they stole the car. They changed the notes. That could be it.
Who colored? I mean,
I don't want to say, but I think I remember from coming to Clash of Kings that Ronnie drives a pretty fancy vehicle. So I could understand if it was stolen without any specific reason other than it's a fancy vehicle.
It's like a pickup. He had a pickup truck.
Yeah, kind of like a big
pickup truck. Yeah,
big, like the big Ram, like not the entry level Ram, something like this. Yeah.
Go faster, Stripes.
Yeah, something like this.
Anyway,
so
moving on.
That's all I know. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know because I'm good at running events, but building a community, I am a shambles. So
I mean, for you, Steve, how to build it is avoid it so that you don't sour the mood.
That's it. Don't inflict me on it is the main problem. It's a bit personal, Clem. Moving swiftly onwards, dear listener, to Rory asks on Facebook, what do you hope for in the Forces of the Abyss refresh later this year? If new plastics, what would be cool? Should the army playstyle change a little? Clem, what do you reckon?
Well, we've talked about it a bit already. I want, I think, cavalry, like a new cavalry.
Oh, yeah. Oh, new cavalry would be so good. Yeah, I'm down on that.
And maybe some sort of monster. I don't think they should do the Morlocks in plastics because the current ones are pretty cool already. I don't know. Like, I kind of want to see some sort of a plastic monster from Mantic, like a modular, Titan or monster size plastic kit that can take all sorts of shapes and forms and so on. That would be pretty cool. And I think Forces of the Abyss could be a good faction to make that for. Some sort of big demonic, like a fiend or like a baby fiend or something like this. This type of models would be cool. But so definitely cavalry, and then maybe a monster or maybe whatever. I'm fine with it. And then playstyle wise, I mean, I'm happy with the usual treatment that they've been giving to armies lately. Like give them a few new tricks, a few new rules here and there, but kind of just add some details on the existing thing, and that's it. What about you, Steve?
I'm just looking at what they've got in the Abyss list. These models aren't bad. I'm not quite sure why they're remaking them. The horses are awful to put together because they're the Mantic horses. So I'm 100% behind new horsemen. Possibly Tortured Souls need a revamp because they're a bit garbage.
Yeah, Tortured Souls are also not. Yeah, but do you need them in plastic is the question. You know what I mean?
And then Succubi, I think, are an old PVC kit by the look of them.
No. They're actual.
Are they plastic?
Hard plastic? They're hard plastic. They're a decent kit. They're a decent kit. Yeah, I've built a few of them. Yeah, the only issue is, they're kind of dynamic poses, and so when you want to glue them on a multi-base, it's always a bit. It's not going to stick for very long. But otherwise, I think they're okay.
I think the whole range is all right. So maybe just they're not that popular at the moment. But the Flame Bearers, I think Flame Bearers are very heavy in the meta, as you say now. But yes. I've not really played them a great deal. John Green Jr. beat my ass down with his Forces of the Abyss and a couple of Croniuses a couple of years ago at Clash of Kings. That was fun. I don't know. I'd like to see what they do. Something new, something original, something that's not just more like shooting characters with piercing spells that don't take cover, like in Twilight King. That would be nice.
Yeah, we don't need that. Let's take another type of torture, right?
Yeah, let's not have more flying, shooting hordes, please. I think moving the game away from that is better. And so, yeah, that's what I would like to see, but we'll see. Well, who knows?
I mean, Forces of the Abyss, they do have quite a bit of regen in the rules. And then a bunch of, some of the units are glass cannon and the rest is very resilient. Because you can heal them a bunch, or
they regen. They've all got fury, right? So it's pretty good.
They've all got fury. So yeah, I mean there are interesting things they could be doing with them. So, and I mean the Forces of the Abyss is the first army that I played in Kings of War. So I'm very much looking forward to the new kits that will bring out, and I have like thousands of points of them. So yeah, I'll look more into it.
There's a bunch of Dead Zone questions on Facebook. Now, I don't know anything about Dead Zone, as you know. So we can either handle these questions now or save them for next month, because we are pushed for time as ever, dear listener.
Yeah, we're pushed for time. I would say let's keep them. I think also Chris is our Dead Zone expert, because I do play Dead Zone every now and then, but I kind of suck at it. So let's set them aside and keep them for some time where someone almost at least sort of knows what they're talking about. I think that would be.
Yeah. Really sorry, Carpool, Erasmus Berger, and Sabretooth Creations for not being able to answer your Dead Zone questions. Because we don't know anything, right? We're rubbish.
Yeah,
sorry.
We'll get back to you in a month. Just like imagine we're Mantic customer service and you have an urgent question that's just like us. That was kind of gratuitous.
So pointed.
That was gratuitous.
Good. Well, we've ground to the end of this exciting episode of the Mantic Universe podcast. Thank you to Mike Rossi for joining us, and Mark and Clem, and me, since I'm also Chris today.
Yes, thanks, Chris and Steve. Chris, you've done a brilliant Chris. It was a fun episode.
Not really. Hope Mrs. Chris had a lovely birthday.
I hope so too.
Yeah. Great. And any last closing thoughts, Clem, before we pop off?
Oh yeah, I didn't mention 10mm Kings of War this episode yet, so you guys should know. Yeah, I'm making 5,000 points of them, so tons of tiny skeletons right now, and I'm loving it. So yeah, That's it.
I printed some 6mm. Was it 6 or 10? It was either 6 or 10mm Kingdoms of Men miniatures on my resin printer for my friend. Let me tell you, they were a pain to print. So small. Because they were all like dogs of war with little pikes and stuff, and I haven't got the thing that makes them bendy. I haven't got because it's like 60 pounds for a bottle, and there was a lot of snapping.
Don't use it pure, just a little bit of it. You just want to do a mix. That's enough. Anyway, we'll talk about all the tricks of printing tiny miniatures another day. But I had to mention it, otherwise Chris would be too happy. So
next episode is all going to be 100% small scale Kings of War. That's what we've agreed, right? Official.
99%. Yes, let's do it.
Yeah,
sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good. Great. Okay, cool. Well, farewell, dear listener, and we'll see you next month. Doodles.